Life is never easy. We all have our stories. Mine started here and will continue as I endeavor throughout my lifespan. When I was in school, I had a hard time. Like so many others, I was subjected to cruel and taunting name-calling. I was called nerd and four eyes, and I felt helpless. It was an environment of ridicule, and I internalized a lot of the negative comments that were made. My mental health suffered, and I became an introvert rather than an extrovert. I rarely opened up and spoke to people around me. I turned to music as a form of therapy. Music became my lifeline, giving me a sense of comfort and belonging that I had never felt before. The songs I listened to gave me strength, helped me find a voice for my thoughts, and to express my feelings in a safer way. Through music, I learnt lessons about life. It showed me things about people, relationships, and the world that textbooks couldn't. It also taught me how to cope with the cruelty that I had to face in school. I started writing poetry and songs with the words that the same people who tried to hurt me used to do it. This therapeutic practice of taking the very words used to bully me and using them for something creative was strangely empowering. Music became my solace. It helped me discover new words and enriched my vocabulary. I found myself communicating more in conversations, and I learnt to channel my energy into something more productive. I slowly regained my confidence and slowly started feeling comfortable in my own skin. Music truly was my savior. It showed me the power of words and how they can transform lives. I learnt to view them as a conduct of creativity rather than weapons. It taught me to embrace my individuality and be proud of the person I was becoming. Music changed my life and gave me the strength to make it through the toughest times of my life. I never forget the day my friends left me, as if they were never my friends. As the tears rolled down my cheeks, I heard a strange rap beat in the distance. I looked over and saw a kid holding a small recorder. His name was Benjamin, aka Spectre, and he offered me the mic. At first, I thought this was some kind of joke. I was never a fan of rap or hip-hop music, but I realized this was a form of expression and my chance to prove myself and show people that I was capable of so much more than they had thought. I also had passion for abstract art and drawing. Little that I knew, the same passion for art would be the key to unlocking my musical creativity. I wrote a song. It was a cover track of Jay-Z and Nas's song, Dead President. When I recorded it and played it back, I was shocked at what I heard. It was so raw and powerful, something I never knew I was capable of. That one song changed everything. Word of it started to spread, and people from all over started to recognize me and my music. Before I knew it, Benjamin and I formed a rap group called Ghetto Foundation, which symbolized our humble beginnings from the council estate. The name Illustrator was given by my best friend Benjamin, as it was a way to show how talented I was in art. It all began at the tennis courts. Who knew? There was another group called Dirty Mafia that Joshy P had created. Josh's group was highly skilled in creating songs, rapping, and freestyling, and we admired them greatly as we made our own tracks. One of our most popular songs was Mary Jane, which Spectre and I had written together. He wrote the chorus and I wrote the verses. The song quickly gained popularity, amongst our friends, and even Josh was impressed with it. One day, Spectre came over to my house and told me that Josh wanted both of us to collaborate on a track. I was stunned and thrilled at the opportunity. Spectre went to Josh's studio to record his verse and then let me know when it was my turn to come in. I was nervous, but excited to work with such talented musicians. When I arrived at Josh's studio, I saw that he had a small room with a computer, keyboard, and speakers. His recording booth was a DIY setup with egg cartons for acoustic treatment and a pop shield made out of ladies' leggings. So impressive. Despite its humble appearance and status, the studio was a creative and inspiring environment. It all started when I started to record in the studio with Josh and saw his sparkling enthusiasm for music. Our first project was to create a rap track together, and Josh knew what he wanted, so he set the flow for the lyrics. I was very nervous and got tongue-tied, struggling to keep up with the pace. I had to attempt the verse multiple times before I delivered it just right. Josh was patient with me and was determined to make it work. His encouragements invigorated me, and I eventually delivered the verse. The track was entitled Get Some More. Get some more, get some more. Get some more, get some more. And it was all about character, style, appearance, and how to make money. The track became popular, and we decided to work on and put together a mixtape with other artists. One of them was Spectre, who handled all the mixing and mastering. We bonded over our love for music to make the project a grand success. Riding on the success after the release of Get Some More, we soon became local celebrities. King Cole and General Plasters were like family to me. We all had a deep passion for hip-hop, and my home studio was the perfect place for them to come together and share their talents. On those special days, King Cole and Plasters would enter my humble home and let loose with their freestyles and raps. We found ourselves in stitches with their wits and humour. After a few hours, we had built up a great collection of awesome freestyles and jokes that we wanted to share with the world. Josh had been part of the Dirty Mafia rap group since its inception. He was the driving force behind the professional image the group had built over the past few years. So when one of the group's members, Plasters, announced he was releasing unfinished material, Josh was less than impressed. He knew it would undermine the group's carefully cultivated reputation and appeared out of character for Plasters. Josh confronted him about the decision, and soon the two became embroiled in an argument. By the next morning, Plasters had announced and made a choice to leave the group and pursue his solo career. Josh felt slightly guilty. He had pushed Plasters too hard, and he knew his old friend had been hurt by his words. He wished Plasters luck as he set off on a new journey, and was happy that he had at least given him the opportunity to do so. At the same time, Josh took a deep breath as he looked around the studio at the other members of the Dirty Mafia. Without Plasters, it was going to be an uphill battle for the group to keep their professional reputation intact. But Josh was determined that the Dirty Mafia would continue to thrive and that he would make sure it stayed that way. After a while, Spectre ran into Plasters. Plasters told him about his latest venture, and to his surprise, and was receptive of the idea to join him. He also spoke of his cousin, who had experience in rap and was quite a talented rapper. With the addition of Plasters' cousin, the group was restored to its former glory. Unfortunately, not all of us saw eye to eye in the team, and there was a falling out between Spectre and I, but we pushed forward to finish the mixtape as a token of respect for music. Despite our souring relationship, I realized that I wanted to further explore a solo career, So I asked for a release from the team and went to pursue a career on my own. I will forever be grateful to Josh, who had the patience to motivate me to deliver for creating an opportunity for a group of talented artists just like us. I will never forget the legacy we created as a single mixtape and how it weaved us together as a team. My interest in hip-hop music began with a diverse range of artists such as Eric B. and Rakim, KRS-One, DMX, Pete Rock, Tribe Called Quest, Mobb Deep, 50 Cent, Eminem, Wu-Tang, Beastie Boys, and many more. It was a revolutionary concept. The beats and lyrics of these artists inspired me greatly. As I listened to mixtapes, I discovered the idea of creating mashups by picking beats from my favorite songs. Although most of the youngsters in my area were into gangster rap, I wanted to rap about my own experiences and what I saw in my everyday life. One of my friends, Marco, was originally from Afghanistan and had moved to the UK to escape terrorism in his own country. He lived in a council flat, and one day, when I visited him, we encountered a man named Simon who was knowledgeable about the history of hip-hop, passionate about record collecting, and a DJ. Since that day, I started hanging out with Simon. Simon was happy by my interest in hip-hop music and why I wanted to rap about my everyday life, rather than the gangster rap that most of the kids in my neighborhood favored. He sat me down and spoke to me about the importance of telling my own story and gave me feedback on different beats and lyrics. He explained the subtle differences between the music of Eric B. and Rakim, KRS-One, Black Thought, Pete Rock, Tribe Called Quest, Beastie Boys, and many others. The differences were important to know because the styles of delivery were different from each other. Over the years, I had many inspiring conversations with Simon about the art of hip-hop, which helped me refine my own style. He also became my mentor, introducing me to other passionate hip-hop artists, pushing me to perform at local clubs, and helping me to get my foot into the door as a professional rapper. I've gone on both to create and collaborate with a diverse range of artists. I will be ever grateful to Simon and others for introducing me to hip-hop and inspiring me to tell my story through my music. Creating conscious mixtapes changed my life. But what's even more amazing is the way it influenced others. I came to a realization that allowing myself to explore various musical styles didn't limit my creativity, but brought it to life. When I was a teenager, I was given the opportunity to compete in a Channel Punjabi Jakade Fatte and Brit Asia, two prestigious singing and performance competitions that took place in the UK. Nervous but eager, I set out to prove myself as an artist. When the competition finally came to an end, I found myself in the final round. I was nervous but confident in my abilities. As I rapped my heart out, the judges were impressed with my talent. However, they had been looking for a Punjabi singer, not a rapper, which was unknown from the onset. However, during my time there, I had the pleasure of forming a friendship with an individual by the name of Nikka Thakkar. It wasn't until later that I discovered that he was actually a renowned YouTuber, known for his humorous and witty Desi Punjabi jokes. As he was also a resident of Leicester, we began spending time with each other on a regular basis for several months. I had always been a huge fan of Indian classical music, but I never had heard of JSD sing before. When Nikka introduced me, I was completely mesmerized by his beautiful voice and presence. We hit it off right away, and he offered me the chance to collaborate with him. JSD would often come to my home studio to experiment with different sounds. His voice had a certain charm to it, and when he sang, it sounded absolutely amazing. A few months hanging out with JSD, he introduced me to V Khan from Highfields, Leicester. JSD told V Khan that I was an up-and-coming rapper who had to be perfect for collaboration. V Khan's face lit up in amazement when he heard the news, as if he had just been given a golden opportunity. He asked me if I could rap a verse for him, and without hesitation, I stepped up to my plate. He seemed genuinely impressed by my performance and told me to drop my number. One day when I was working in my home studio, I received a text from V Khan asking if I was able to come over to his house. Thinking that I'll get to hear some of his beats, I hopped on my bike and made the short journey. When I arrived, he welcomed me into his house. After conversing about my rapping style, he told me that he really liked my rapping and wanted to work with me on something. He then proceeded to play me numerous beats that he had been working on, asking me to pick the ones I liked best for us to work on. I left V Khan that day with a sense of delight and anticipation. I couldn't wait to get started on making music with him. I was prepared to take my musical career to a whole new level. After getting my hands on some of V Khan's beats, I and V Khan set forth to create. I and V Khan released several singles together, like Kind of Love, a girly track, Point of Time, a motivational one, and Ma, a Mother's Day song. We also released Rolled the Dice, which revolved around the idea of life being a game and how it should be played. V Khan eventually suggested me that I should try rapping in my native language, Punjabi. I hadn't really thought about it before, but I was open to the idea. I began writing and recording over 4 beats from V Khan's beat batch folder. To his surprise, we combined the 4 and created an EP entitled High Speed, and I began my first take in English and Punjabi. Illustrator and V Khan continued to collaborate and create together, and their EP High Speed was the start of something special. Each track highlighted a different aspect of me rapping in Punjabi, and the EP put me on the map as an up-and-coming rap artist. It was amazing how things turned out, and I was grateful to V Khan for getting me started. As soon as the high-speed tracks were laid down at the recording studio, it was time for the next step of the process, mixing and mastering. I and V Khan agreed that this part of the job was crucial and that it had to be perfect. Since these tracks were the best they could ever be, in its gender, we all knew we needed a best engineer to take on this task. The name that kept coming over and over was Josh. V Khan never knew him personally, but his reputation as one of the best at the time was unparalleled. We finally decided to reach out to Josh and see if he was available to work on the project. He immediately agreed and got to work, without further ado. Everybody who was present for the session was amazed at Josh's skill and expertise. He knew exactly how to bring all the tracks together, making them sound as if they were part of a cohesive unit. He also knew when to add little touches and flourishes, ensuring that the finished project was truly something special. When the mixing and mastering was complete, everyone in the studio was speechless. Josh had taken this vision and brought it to life. Our little project had transformed into a true work of art, exactly what we had hoped for and more. It wasn't until months later, when the EP was released, that everybody realized how talented Josh was. His name was in the liner notes and quickly gained recognition. The EP was entitled High Speed, and it had 8 booming tracks. Thanks to Josh, the EP tracks had been transformed into something amazing. With his skill and expertise, Josh had taken the project to the next level, without a shadow of a doubt. Josh was flipping through his phone when he saw a post about a new event in London called Desi Circus. Apparently, its arrival was causing quite a stir in the city, with people eager to find out what exactly the circus had to offer. Intrigued, Josh decided to send me a text to let me know about it. "Safe, bro. You have to check out this Desi Circus event in London. Josh texted. It's supposed to be a real spectacle. What do you think? I replied, that definitely sounds like something I should go to. So I, my brother, JSD, were set to go to London to showcase our talent. We went by car. We arrived at the South Bank Centre in London, where the event was taking place. As we looked around, we could see many Desi artists amongst the diverse crowd that had come to enjoy the show. The event was organised by Terry Mardy, a well-known publisher, record producer, blogger, and YouTuber. He was quite a remarkable sight, with his bright yellow t-shirt and spiky hair. As Terry introduced me, he asked me what I was planning to perform. Excitedly, I told him I was about to do a Punjabi rap. To my surprise, he was quite pleased with the change of pace, as all the other artists were either singing or rapping in English. People in the crowd murmured to each other, eager to hear my performance. As Terry introduced me, he asked what I was planning on performing. They were all eager to listen to a Punjabi rapper. I was a little nervous at first. I started to get into the groove, to prove and improve. Terry was nodding along with the beat, and the rest of the crowd set moved to the groove. After I had finished, there was a wave of applause, and I found out that the other artists and the audience had respect for my act. They also said it was their first time listening to a Punjabi rapper, especially in the UK. Overall, the show was a grand success, and it was an honour to be performing alongside some amazing Desi talents. Terry thanked me for my rap, and told me he could definitely see me on the same stage in the future. He said that my raps will stay with him as an inspiration as I keep rapping and developing my craft. As I expected, I received an email from Terry. I had been eagerly awaiting for an email from Terry. After all, he had offered me to open up for him at the South Bank Centre. I was already inspired by Terry's up-and-coming performance. I was beyond excited when I read his email that day. He was now planning to take his performance up a notch and had invited me to join him. I was always a shy guy, so when I found out I was given a chance to perform in front of a huge live audience, I was terrified. But then I told myself that it was my chance to shine. I asked my friend, V. Khan, who gave me tips, and he told me his 4 golden rules that would help me become the confident performer. Number 1 was to rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. I had no idea how important it was to practice until V. Khan reminded me that I could make and break my performance with practice. Number 2 was appearances. V. Khan said that how I dressed and groomed myself before entering the stage could make a huge difference. He said that my audience would be drawn to how I presented myself. First, my voice, to complement my outlook. Number 3 was eye contact and body expressions. V. Khan had the most intense words here. He said that even if I was afraid and trembling by something, I had to make sure to show confidence in my body language. He also said it was important to keep eye contact as much as possible with my audience, as this would help me build a connection with them. Number 4 was even more chilling. Do not overthink it. Just give it your best shot, he said. If I can just keep this in my mind, I'd be okay. Get into the element mode, he said. After weeks of preparation, I was ready for the stage. V. Khan gave me the thumbs up and told me to record the footage for my up-and-coming music video, Zindagi. My brother and I drove to the South Bank Centre in London. We parked our car, a black BMW Series 1, and quickly made our way to the Pavilion Hall. Terry, dressed up in a purple jacket and a magician's hat, greeted us as soon as we arrived. He told us to go backstage and queue up in line with the other performers. There was a large group of performers, but one stood out in particular. Rackstar. Rackstar was a well-known name in the Asian music scene. His live band was ready to go, and I had time to chat with his manager before his performance started, and this piqued my interest in the music business even more. As Rackstar's performance began, the live drums were synced with his vocals perfectly. I was suddenly aware of how a live band is an entirely different experience to rapping over beats. I soon started to focus on my own performance. I was handed a wireless mic, and when the curtains opened, I was thrust into the spotlight. The stage was huge, and I was feeling a mix of emotions. With no introduction, I started my rap, but oddly enough, it felt like something more. I felt connected through my soul, and my lyrics poured out of me. I no longer felt like I was in a crowd. It seemed it was just me and the music. I found my element. As soon as the lights dimmed, a hush of anticipation filled the space. And then Terry stepped onto the stage, looking all well, with a big confident smile on his face. Everybody in the theatre was clapping and cheering as he introduced each piece of his work. As I was in the moment, watching him on stage, I felt inspired. Time seemed to lose its significance as I took in the beauty of what I was witnessing. We stayed around after the show, talking to my brother who filmed it all. He showed us some of the footage, and we were amazed to see how much of it had come together for the final product. We were thrilled, and it felt like our hard work had paid off. Terry was an inspiring music producer, and I was equally passionate about the art of music. Terry had great faith in my abilities, and I shared the same faith. He kept in touch and decided to mentor me on a freelance basis. Terry started educating me with information about BPM, Deen Tal, Indian classical music, the history of hip-hop, drum knowledge. He communicated all through WhatsApp, which I was new to, and it made processing the information so much faster. I studied hard, applying myself diligently to every concept he presented to me. He gave me several exercises and tasks to complete each day, such as playing with various tempos or speaking in certain cadences. I practiced pitch and tone control, also varying accents to add to my versatility. I eventually started feeling more comfortable with my skills. I could replace old beats with new ones, think of creative ideas, and articulate my ideas better. I was also able to understand the basic theory better. With Terry's help, I had found a new passion and my skills started to blossom. It was amazing how much I had been able to learn in such a short period of time. I had grown so much, and Terry was extremely proud. Thanks to the fast technology of the current world, our dreams of producing music had become a reality. Terry showed me how we could use such technology to our advantage, and now I'm forever grateful for that lesson. Technology and a great mentor had transformed a music hobby into a newfound passion. As a Punjabi songwriter, I had always been intrigued by the idea of creating freestyle rap videos. I wanted to put a unique spin on my style. So when I heard about the success of the famous D12 rap song, I figured it was the perfect place to start. D12, a US hip-hop collective from Detroit, Michigan. I decided to focus on producing an authentic black and white freestyle video, so I enlisted the help of my brother, who had the right sort of equipment and expertise to make it happen. We invested in a high-quality mic and mapped out a plan for shooting the video in black and white, print format video. We decided to film in the streets of our local neighborhood and make the story of the video look a little different than the average. I had a gift for video directing, so I came up with some cool angles and effects that would make the video stand out. In the editing phase, I made sure to sync the lip movements and the beat of the song perfectly in order to bring it all together. After all the hard work, the video to YouTube and waited to see what kind of response we would receive. The response was massive, and with the help of people sharing the video, we were so encouraged by this success that we decided to make a freestyle video every week. Every week, we would score for beats and rap along to them and watch how people responded to the video. It was a wild ride, and it taught me so much about production and what people connected to when it came to music. I feel like being able to experiment with freestyle raps and telling stories through the art of rap really helped my development and helped me hone my craft. It was incredibly fun and a rewarding journey to experience the different sides of rap and make something of my own. After months of promoting my videos, the black and white video from the group had quickly become the most watched on their channel. People were drawn to its perfect composition and visuals, and it seemed like the success would continue indefinitely. For as long as I could remember, I have always dreamed of becoming a well-known artist. When I saw Surinder Rattan's message on Facebook, I felt like all my dreams were within reach. He told me that he was a record producer for big Bollywood movies and artists, and was well known at the BBC studios in London. He said that if I was willing to give him my art, whenever he wanted, he would sign me as an artist, and my eyes lit up with excitement at the thought. At first, I was hesitant, as I heard horror stories of vulnerable artists getting locked into 360 deals and contracts they had no idea about. My head was full of dreams of being the next big thing and never having to work again, but I decided to meet him anyway. I was interested. I wanted to make my passion for music my career. I was more than willing to put in the hard work to achieve my dream of becoming a successful Desi rap artist, but I had to be careful. I had only heard of Surinder from my brother, and I wasn't sure if he was trustworthy. Finally, it was decided that if I wanted to join him and become part of his label, then I had to commit to it. I would have to sign a contract and commit. It would be risky, but I knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The day of the signing arrived, and I was both excited and anxious. I had told nobody beside my brother and Terry about this, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Surinder Rattan had given us the location, a local pub in the heart of Birmingham, which was known for its Desi crowd. I arrived on time. Nevertheless, Surinder Rattan turned up much later, informing me on his lateness at a leisure meeting. He showed up in a beanie hat, wearing sunglasses, with a taint of weed from his recreational meeting. We went inside and he started talking about his records. To exhibit to me, he was what he was claiming to be, a reputable record producer. "I love the video you made," he said. "I've made a lot of those videos. Which one are you referring to?" I asked. "The black and white one, bro," Surinder replied. I smiled and nodded. Yes, everyone likes that one. I was mesmerized by the way the black and white visualizer combined with the catchy music, which melted the hearts of all the viewers. "You have a lot of potential to become a star. Everyone will know you, and you will get all the girls singing your name. Trust me." I felt my heart swell with the promise of fame and recognition, not so much about the girl business. I knew he wanted to be well known and work with the best producers in the business. Surinder then asked, "Can you rap double time?" Double time rapping is a technique that involves rapping at a faster tempo than the beat of the song. I hesitated. I had never tried to rap double time before, but I was willing to give it a shot. I hadn't done it, but I can attempt my level best. That will be better than the rest. Surinder nodded approvingly. "Good. You are open to different styles then. That's important. You have the potential to become one great illustrator." I couldn't believe my ears. I was beyond thrilled that Surinder was putting me on the spot, and I was even more excited to take on a new challenge. With a leap of faith, I accepted the challenge to rap double time and he was determined to make my mark in the Desi rap scene. Surinder Ratan asked me to take a listen to a track with a Punjabi singer on the chorus he had been working on. He enthusiastically told me to write to it and send him a demo. The track was called Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Twinkle twinkle little star. It was too good of an opportunity for me. I forgot to ask him about the contract. I thought it would be a good idea to seek some help. I quickly found a Punjabi friend, Gurpreet, from Leicester, who was my neighbour, who was willing to help me write the song, who was equally excited as I was. He offered to help me to make the demo. We worked diligently, adding multiple layers and writing Punjabi lyrics on top. The song now had the perfect balance of what we were looking for. Finally, after all our hard work, I sent the demo to Surinder. I nervously hoped he would like it and sign me up. I received an immediate reply. He said my work was on point and he loved what I was talking about. Girls, fun, money, respect, materialism, status. A few days later, I received the contract, but it seemed like a joke. It seemed like it was typed by hand, with contradicting items, making it impossible to understand. I asked my friend Josh to take a look at it, and his first response was, almost like a capless death trap. The deal he proposed gives him complete control over my music, bonding me to him for 2 years, with no money or masters from my songs. Not only this is unfair, it seems downright illegal. Josh's first reaction was to reject his offer. Nevertheless, let's try and negotiate. Let me speak to him, he said. Give me his number and I'll see what I can do. Still feeling a little wary, I gave Josh his number. He called him the next evening and they talked on the phone. Surinder Ratan called me the next day saying, "Do you think I want to trap you?" he asked me, looking for me to give him an answer. I sighed. "I'm not interested," I said simply. The conversation was tense and awkward for a few moments before we hung up, neither one particularly happy with the outcome. As I thought about it later, I realized that it had been the right decision. If I had gone with this one, I would have been at a disadvantage, and Surinder Ratan would have been benefiting. I had decided to take the risk, be wary, and protect myself. Sometimes you have to be a bit more cynical to protect yourself. But in the long run, it was the best. I was listening to my heart and mind over matter. My conversations with Surinder was eye-opening. I had heard rumours about the industry, but I had never heard anything so concrete before. I decided to phone Terry, who had been in the business for years, and also had a second opinion by Josh. "So Terry," I said, "I just had a conversation with the music producer, namely Surinder Ratan. He gave me the dreams of being the next big celebrity by getting me committed to a long-term deal that would have been to my deficit." Terry chuckled. "I know, Surinder. Yeah, the industry is like that. You've got to keep your eyes open to what is going on. That experience you had is typical. Make sure you don't get taken advantage of. It's like LL Cool J saying, 'Brainstorm is a microphone contract.'" His words stuck with me. After that, I kept my eyes peeled for any signs of nefarious deals or underhanded agreements. I started to pay attention to backroom gossips and try to get a better understanding of how things worked. Looking back, I'm glad I decided to call Terry and bone up on the business knowledge. Without both advices by Josh and Terry, I would have been taken by shock. One day, I received a message from General Plasters. "Yo, bro, what's good?" It had been such a long time since I heard anything from him, but this time, he had reached out to me for something very interesting. He told me about an amazing style of rap singing that he had just discovered. And his new name, Ra, the ruler, taken from the Egyptian god Horus. I was intrigued and immediately invited him to visit me at my home studio. He arrived soon after, and I was in awe of what I heard. His unique take on rap was something to be admired, and I quickly began to work on a collaboration and incorporation with him, continuing the story of a girl I had read about who had passed away from the effects of cocaine. I related the story with my Punjabi verses, and the producer that produced the beat was a Japanese producer called Jesus. Ra stepped in to deliver the chorus. It was a touching song, one which I wanted my friend Terry to hear, so I sent him the track via WhatsApp. And after listening, he was speechless. "This is epic, bro," he messaged me back. It then came to our attention that there was an outdoor event scheduled in Nottingham hosted by Terry Mardy as the Desi Circus. Intriguingly, Ra the ruler had picked up a guitar and gotten quite good at it very quickly, so we decided that he would play guitar while I rapped. We only had 1 week to practice, but we managed to get ourselves event ready. On the day of the event, we performed our set in front of an audience. I was wearing my purple t-shirt with Punjabi writing on it, and Ra was dressed in hip-hop gear, complete from head to toe, with a snapback. At the end of our performance, the audience stood to give us a thunderous round of applause. We even won the Fine Artist category, all because of a simple message sent by General Plasters at the beginning of our journey. After the Nottingham event had finished, Ra met Terry. He was an aspiring rap singer and had been performing with me. Impressed by the chorus he had heard, Terry had no reservations in introducing himself to him. It had been a week since I last heard from Terry. I had been trying to reach him, but he hadn't been responding. I began to worry that something might be wrong. Finally, I received a message from Terry. He told me he wouldn't be available for a little while, as he was in and out from hospital in London. It seemed he had a past history of multiple tumours in his brain, and he was still having pains now and then. I told him it was completely fine. There was a long silence before Terry said he was tired and had to go. I wished him well and told him to keep me updated. The days quickly passed by and I heard nothing from Terry. I kept trying to call or message him, but I got no response. I did not despair. After what felt like an eternity, I received another text message from Terry. He told me he was doing much better and was out of hospital. He said that the tumours were seemed to be gone for now and he was doing all the needed follow-ups. Relieved. I was happy for Terry, that his health was improving. I thanked him for keeping me updated and to let him know that I was always there for him if he ever needed me. We talked for a while about my advances in lyrics and rap creating. One day, however, I got a message on my Facebook page from a record label called Envy Records from Birmingham. My friends had tagged me in one of my freestyle videos, and that's how they found out about me. I was a little worried when I received an unexpected message from Envy Records. I had recently had a bad experience with a music producer called Surinder Ratan and his offer of a bogus contract that left a bad taste in my mouth. So when Envy Records asked me if I could come meet them and their team, I said yes, but with a little hesitation and some reservation equally. Nevertheless, I eventually managed to pluck up the courage and decided to go along. When I arrived at the studio, I was greeted with an atmosphere of enthusiasm, and it seemed everyone was excited. I was taken to a small office where the executives were eagerly waiting to meet me. The team asked me a lot of questions about my musical background and inspirations. I could sense the enthusiasm they had for my creativity, but my mind was still filled with doubts. Although I tried to come off as a confident and professional, my thoughts kept wandering back to the biased agreement and schemes in terms and conditions of a musical label contract. The meeting continued, and it seemed to be going well. I could almost sense they really wanted me to join their team. But as the decision came to a close, I could still feel a lingering unease. It seemed like every word I spoke was followed by a nervous pause, as I wondered how this would all play out. At the end of the meeting, I was relieved that I had managed to come across as professional and confident, despite my previous negative experience. We ended the meeting with a handshake and agreement, and we would be in touch in the coming days. I left the studio with my head held high, looking forward for a fresh start with the team, as we all need to have faith and hope. Envy Records had agreed upon a request. Now they were sending me an artist development contract to sign. I was thrilled, notwithstanding that it could be a cold start. I discovered that it was a 20-page document filled with small prints and complex legal languages that I wasn't sure I could understand. It was serious jargon. I didn't want to make any mistakes or miss something important, so I decided to get it checked and read through my musical lawyer before I signed it. I knew this would cost me more money, but I was willing to do whatever it took to ensure that my deal with Envy Records was rock solid, to both of our advantages. He said that he had read it thoroughly and wanted to discuss something with me on the phone. I agreed to that. When the call began, he made it clear that the contract was not suitable for me, as it had a lot of loopholes in it. Creative control was the primary issue that had concerned him. It also meant that I would not be able to monetize any work I created independently, dictated by the label, and would not be allowed to collaborate with any other artist or producer. In addition, Envy Records was demanding a 50% cut from any money I made from merchandise. All tours will have to be a 50-25 split after costs. Personal security is not covered, though I appreciated the label seemed to be genuine in their promise to promote my music. I understood they wanted me to be a promotional toy under their control, while they earned the biggest profits of my career. Thanks to my lawyer for his in-depth analysis and polite attitude. And then I messaged Envy Music to thank them for their offer, but declined it by politely saying no. They were shocked and disappointed by my response. After this, they tried all they could to show me all the opportunities they had in line for me, but I was steadfast in my decision. I thanked them one last time and ended it there. I was relieved when they didn't bother me with any more messages after that. I couldn't believe it. Just a few months ago, I was performing at the Desi Circus. Now the BBC wanted me to rap in Punjabi on their network. I was so excited, but also a bit scared. I had never done something like this before. I told Yasser that I'd love to come to his show and asked for more details. He told me the date and time of the interview. He instructed me to prepare a few questions just in case I got stuck. I eventually arrived at the studio, and the receptionist left me there, assuring me that she would come back to take me to the recording room. I took a deep breath, and my heart still beating rapidly. I stepped into the British Broadcast Corporation radio studio. It was darkly lit, with fluorescent lights illuminating the cameras and a control desk in the center. A few people were seated at the control desk, while Yasser was seated around the solid state-of-the-art equipment during his own broadcast. I had to pinch myself several times before I felt relaxed enough to take a seat in front of the cameras and the live radio broadcast. Before I knew it, Yasser had asked me to introduce myself. My heart rate accelerated once again as my mouth opened to introduce myself. I didn't feel scared though. I felt myself slowly morphing into a confident person I wanted to become. It was my moment and I was in the moment. I started off by talking about my background and upbringing in the UK, the music scene and the inspiration behind my artwork, and how I would use my talents to break through the industry and make an impact in the world. Hence my alias, Illustrator. During the interview, Yasser asked me some interesting questions about my creative process, beliefs, and experiences. After the introduction was over, Yasser invited me to do a freestyle rap in Punjabi. I was determined to deliver my best performance. I felt like I was in a trance as my creative flow came naturally. My lyrics split into the room like long arrows aiming at my audience. My passion soared high as I pronounced my mic check. There was no need for sound check. Track was entitled Get Down, Nas cover, and the song was about war awareness. As I continued with the rap, I felt like I was speaking a different language. My mind was racing with the speed of light, and I was dropping verses with ease. Every sentence was a bridge to another part of my rap that I never knew I was capable of delivering. After conversing, rapping, and chatting and enjoying the good vibes, I had to make my leave. I thanked Yasser and his team for the great experience. He told me that the interview will go online and on air on the BBC Asian Network, a dedicated slot for Asian communities, and he would get back to me regarding any future collaborations. I was eccentric at the thought of millions of people listening to me. I said my goodbyes. This was a great moment of timing, as the next day I was due to fly out to India with the feeling that I had to make a mark on the industry and that I was capable of greatness. When the plane touched down in Punjab, Amritsar, 8 hours later, and jet-lagged, we were welcomed by a wave of sweltering heat. We stepped out the airport, greeted by a few of my dad's friends from the village. They drove us back to the village, and soon as we arrived, my grandma and my grandpa were beyond excited to see us. They welcomed us with open arms. We were then introduced to their guard dog, a German shepherd, whose name was Tiger. We spent the week at their home, enjoying the hospitality and exploring the village. The scenery around the village was simply breathtaking. We went for daily swims in the nearby lakes and watching locals going on about their day, rode on the back of donkeys and watched the cattle being driven from one field to the other, rode on a farm tractor. Boy, all of that was better than riding a Lamborghini. One day, we were stopped in our tracks by an unexpected voice. "You should go meet a few musicians," the sweet voice Robbie said. His eyes twinkled in the dusk. "There's an amazing husband and wife who are blind and play the harmonium that live in Jalandhar city. I think you'll be enchanted." Curious but hesitant, I and Dad looked at each other and agreed. We had other plans, but we were both drawn to the perspective of meeting these special musicians. So, we set off to Jalandhar city, famous for its food bazaars, fashion, and charisma. What we encountered had left us speechless. The intense music the blind couple was able to produce was so entrancing, captivating the couple as we listened spellbound. The husband and wife had also a child they were taking care of as they played their instruments. To me and Dad, the sight of the couple and their little son filled our hearts with joy. Both were blind since birth and had been living in their family home ever since with their children. Despite their disability, they had managed to support themselves and lead independent lives. But one day, misfortune hit them hard. A crooked property dealer managed to trick them into signing a contract that gave their home away to him. In the blink of an eye, they were suddenly without a home. They were devastated. All of their years living in the same house, in the same neighborhood, had been taken away from them, and now they were homeless. No one was around to help them in their time of need, and no one seemed to care about their plights. The only thing they could do was try to find a way to survive. They managed to do so by working as a musical teacher, and slowly they were able to save up enough money to buy a small house in the city. Although their situation had improved, they never forgot about the man who had taken advantage of their vulnerability and stolen their home from them. However, they knew that justice would eventually be served. The universe had a way of ensuring them that such wickedness would not go unpunished. This is yet another learning curve to remember. After a while, they asked if I had my own story to share. I told them that I was actually a rapper. I explained what it meant to them And then their reaction was one of a sheer amazement. I performed one of my songs for them, one that I composed in Punjabi and English. They were ecstatic and so taken away by the beat of the music that they started to sway to it. The smile on their faces was beautiful and memorable. We happily took pictures together and gave each other hugs goodbye. As me and my dad drove away, they wished me the best for my musical journey. Now, the universe made it happen. I was going to be visiting an Indian classical guru by the name of Ustad B.S. Narang Sahab. We were delighted to visit Ustad B.S. Narang on our next visit, the guru of Indian classical music, which we had heard so much of and only glimpsed in the photos. We knew that he taught some of the greatest Punjabi singers we had come to love, including Hans Raj Hans, Jaspir Jassi, and Sarbjit Jima. When we arrived, we were warmly greeted by Ustadji himself. His hands twinkled as he moved gracefully across the harmonium, playing the old melodies with effortless mastery. This was all experienced in Ustadji's house. He began to teach us about Indian classical music and the different variations of the harmonium. His description of the various techniques opened new windows and the musicians in us. I felt a connection to the music and I kept asking questions, feeling as though I had knew each and every word he had to offer. His next lesson was to introduce us to the music of some of the greatest Punjabi singers he had taught throughout his career. He taught them each their music himself, and he had an unwavering belief in their music. We couldn't help but marvel at its knowledge and the amount of commitment and energy that had gone into teaching them. A true legend. I nervously introduced myself, telling Ustadji that I was a rapper, that I had uploaded a couple of music videos on YouTube. He appeared to be intrigued, so I proceeded to show him the videos I had created, which were on YouTube. He seemed most impressed with the latest music video, entitled Ma, meaning mother. This video had been produced by my close friend and producer, V. Khan. It was a story of my mum and the lengths she had gone to support me during the worst times of my life. She had been my hero, never leaving my side, and even when she had a terminal illness, I was abandoned, who had once been close friends. When Ustadji had finished watching Ma, I could see that it had a profound effect on him. For a moment, I thought I saw tears in his eyes. He thanked me for sharing the video and gave me blessings, wishing me all the best in my career. I was humbled by his appreciation and grace. As we carried on our journey, started conversing with the kids, what we heard was really inspiring. Each of them had their own unique local story. He said there was a big event in Jalandhar city at one of the colleges. There was so much going on: workshops, singing, artwork, and award giving. The students that were learning from Ustadji were also there. So after our time with Ustadji at his home, we decided to go to the college. As we arrived, we seen so much going on. We stopped and started conversing with the kids. What we heard was really inspiring. Each of them had their own unique local stories and ideas that they were trying to express through their art. Some of them had made paintings of how pollution had affected their towns. Others showed the effects of corruption, while still others despited forgetting aspects of their culture. The energy was very homely and was very positive. There was so much hope in the air, and we could feel it. We watched with fascination as the kids worked hard on their homework and as the night unfolded. Finally, Ustadji rounded up the event with a warm thank you to everyone who was present. He praised and awarded the kids for their hard work and creativity, and announced that all the art taking place inside the college had been extremely moving and inspiring to him. He then declared that the event will now become a regular happening in Jalandhar city. At the end of the day, This was our last evening in Jalandhar city. Ustadji and I exchanged numbers, promising to keep in touch. As we prepared to proceed back to our village, Ustadji surprised me. Remember, illustrator, once you get back to the UK, there's a humble student of mine who can help you with your musical knowledge, he said. His name was Gurpreet. He had taken the time out to find a student for me to keep learning in the UK. I was touched by his goodwill and thanked him, vowing to stay in touch and use the contact he provided. We shared a warm embrace before going our separate ways. That was the last time I saw Ustadji. After saying our farewells, back to his home in Jalandhar, and I travelled back to the village, where soon after I contacted Ustadji's recommended student, and my harmonium and Deendal education was flourished ever since. As we made our way back, I took the lead and started to rap walking in my own unique style. My dad smiled knowingly as he watched me walking down the street, rapping as I went. He was amazed, not only at the talent, but also at the effect I had on people. As I passed by, I was surrounded by a sort of energy that attracted people to me. Even those who had never heard a rap song before seemed mesmerized. He heard the villagers talking behind him, discussing the young boy's talent and who he was. My dad knew that he didn't have to listen for long. "That's Roshan's son, isn't it?" one person said. "From London, UK. "It must be," another responded. My dad smiled, knowing that his son was making a name for himself and that villagers were taking notice. For a long time, Roshan had hoped that his son would take a keen interest in music, but he never expected him to be such a master of the art and craft. My dad watched me as I continued to rap as I walked. It was as if I was in a sort of meditative trance, like some sort of energetic being. Everywhere I went, the people seemed attracted to me. Even those who didn't have a keen interest in Punjabi rap seemed to be mesmerized by the music and the boy's rap. My dad knew that he had made the right choice in encouraging his son to pursue his passion, and he couldn't have been any more proud. Early one morning, my dad awoke to his sound of his phone ringing. Ring, 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 ring. He answered the call. It was Agyapal Singh Bath, an old friend of Dad's from his days in India. "Oh, kitna Roshan? I heard you guys are in India," Agyapal said with a friendly chuckle. Dad cleared his throat before responding. "Yes, we are." Agyapal's voice adopted a more serious tone. "As I know you're in India, it would be good for you to meet a close relation of mine, which is part of the music industry." Dad nodded, absent-mindedly. "Yes, we would love to," he said. Agyapal continued. "Well, I feel he will be some good to him, and he is a connection that can help him on his way. I want you to go meet him and hear what he has to say. I promise it won't be a waste of time, and in turn it will be a pleasant experience." Dad thought about Agyapal's words carefully before responding. Eventually, he decided to take the leap of faith. "Okay, Agyapal, I'll do it. I'll go meet your connection and see what he has to offer." After the phone ended, my dad hung up the phone and grabbed his keys. His son's music career was about to take off, and there was nothing else to do but wait. My dad had not talked to his friend in a long time, but he was intrigued by the invitation. He was curious about the Punjabi music and movie industry, and so he agreed and set off for his meeting with Agyapal Singh Bath's close relation. My dad had spent many years in India, where he had grown up and where he had many friends. Agyapal Singh Bath was one of those friends, and Dad had always looked forward to any updates from his friend. Agyapal had retired from running and had become a successful media platform. He had his own show on MyTV and hosted many large concerts featuring famous singers. Agyapal was also a well-known television presenter. He was always encouraging my dad to pursue his dreams. So, when Agyapal told my dad to meet a close relative of his, a man who worked in the Punjabi music industry and was a popular actor in Punjabi films, my dad was thrilled. Hobby Taliwal was no stranger to the Punjabi film industry. He had been dubbed the King of Villains due to his captivating performance in villainous roles. He was a demand for all Punjabi films, alongside well-known actors like Gippy Garewal, Gurpreet, Paramjeet Singh Sohi, and many others, and too many names to mention. We travelled to Patiala, and soon as we arrived, we were amazed. The bungalow was huge, and the grounds were full of trees and plants. The servant asked us who we were. After we had told him, he told us to kindly take a seat in the lounge area till Hobby Taliwal arrived. He soon made his presence known, wearing a fine white kurta with matching shoes and gundiya mucha, proudly making his way into the room. We could tell from his serious expression that he was a man who took his professional life very seriously. His voice was calm and inviting, but his words gave us a pause. He said, "How are you related to Agyapal?" My dad's answer was simple. We were friends from the days as we were pro athletes. Hobby Taliwal smiled warmingly. His expression lightened as he heard our answer. As my dad introduced me to Hobby, saying I was serious about my musical career and had a lot of drive and determination, Hobby seemed to be intrigued and wanted to know what I had to offer. I rapped a verse from my Ma song while Hobby listened. Hobby enjoyed the rap, but made a comment on my singing. "Beta ji, the rap was great, but your singing needs a lot of improvement," he said. Myself felt a bit discouraged, but I was determined to improve. "But not to worry though. Everything is possible," he said. "We can get the singing out of you. It's no big deal." Hobby, inspired by my willingness to persist, got to work helping me. At this point, Hansraj, my uncle, suggested that Hobby would tell us about the experience in the industry, what it was like, and how we got into it. He said that the industry was filled with glamour and glitz, and is all about competition. You had to have a unique style and the right look and personality to stand out. Hobby Taliwal then grew serious for a moment as he discussed the darker aspects of the industry, talking about how some of the music scene were taking drugs and endangering their careers. He warned me to be careful, telling me that it was easy to get any type of drug and that people would try to take advantage of me by spiking my drink. Hobby warned me that if I wasn't careful, women might come along and sabotage my career. He had seen other men in the industry face similar circumstances, and many of them had never recovered. Jealousy is a form of mental disease which cannot be chased. "But don't get me wrong," Hobby replied. "There is a brighter side to the industry with artists such as Gurdas Mann, who is admired by the industry and he is by his fans. He is a professional and his dedication to his performance is unmatched. Known to be humble, disciplined, and a devotee. Whenever he has a performance, he would always take the time to pray and meditate before each performance, rehearse for hours, and review his set list to make sure he was ready for each tour. Though the industry was full of hard-working, talented individuals, Gurdas Mann was in a league of his own. His dedication to his art, his commitment to perfecting it, and his earnestness made him an idol among both industry and fans alike. You can do well out here as long as you are ready to commit and sacrifice," Hobby replied. "So, are you ready to make the move?" he asked me. I wasn't expecting him to be so straight to the point. I had just met him, and already he was proposing a life-altering decision. "What do you mean?" I asked. He proceeded to explain his vision. He told me that Chandigarh was full of opportunities, especially aspiring artists just like me, and then spread out across the world. Why not you? I wasn't sure if I wanted to move away from my home, but I also knew this would be an amazing chance to pursue my dream career. I began to think about all the possibilities, and unexpectedly, excitement sparked inside of me. I am interested. My dad was happy and proud of me, but he was also worried. He had grown up in India, and he knew what it was like. He knew how crafty and resourceful people can be in an unfamiliar environment, to their advantage and my disadvantage as a new kid on the block. He kept quiet and listened to Hobby speak about the proposal for his son to immerse himself in this foreign land. When Hobby finished, he passionately pleaded. He smiled and said, "Let's get the show rolling then." Hobby said he had an unexpected surprise for me. He said he would get in contact with a record label called Angel Records, managed by Kamal Boparai, a label executive looking to sign new artists. Angel Records is still operating till this day. Hobby replied with words of encouragement and told me to keep him updated, letting him know how the meeting goes and that we are ready to move forward. There was a particular Punjabi rapper that grabbed my attention before I made this magical trip to Punjab. He is MC Azad. I knew of his music through Chitta, an MC Sach freestyle video on YouTube. When I first heard of MC Azad's music on YouTube, my heart leaped instantly. I had never heard of a rapper with such a skillful flow, insightful lyricism, and a powerful message of strength and resilience. I was instantly hooked. I decided to take a gamble and message Azad directly, telling him that I was a huge fan and that I was planning a trip to Punjab so that he could meet me. I was delightful to receive a reply from Azad, saying, "Kidda Paji, Watagwan, this is my address and number." I checked. "You have shared with me some of your rap videos too, huh?" I couldn't believe it. Here was this famous rapper not only inviting me to his home, trusting me enough to send me his address and number, but also taking interest in my endeavors as a rapper. I was beyond excited. We left Hobby's house and headed to Kanna Sher, a very busy city with a lot of pollution. I rang MC Azad and told him that we were on our way, and he said he'll meet us under a bridge. We arrived there after a few moments, and sure enough, a young guy on a motorbike with sunglasses was waiting for us. He told us to follow him to his house, and we did, parking our car inside. As we stepped out the car, I said "Respect, my bro" to MC Azad and told him how much of a fan I was and how I highly appreciated him to meet us. He was a humble dude. He took us into his house to introduce us to his parents. He was the only son in the family, and he had a brief chat with his dad before he called me in his minimalistic and simplistic bedroom so we could have a deeper conversation about hip-hop and also how I could potentially improve myself as an artist. I was sitting with a genius when it came to Punjabi rap, a master of wordplay, metaphors, double meanings, punchlines. The list goes on and on. He had studied the origins of hip-hop and Punjabi music and created his own unique style. He would mainly talk about the issues that affected our current society, but also brought a bit of humor in his raps by making freestyles with a reference line, similar to what Immortal Technique would do. There was an aura of calmness and patience about him. I felt the urge to learn more, so I asked him more questions, and he answered all of them with such ease. Azad and I talked more about developing lyrical skills in rap. I asked, what else can I do to learn how to rap, to expand my style and flow? Azad took a deep breath. You need to understand that rapping is just a mix of all things literally. It's not just about rhyme schemes and slickness, in which words, poems, and storytelling all connect together. It's not necessarily the words that you're using, but the way you're delivering them and the emotion behind it what truly counts. Azad continued, "You need to read books and watch movies, not just for the content, but also learn the words that they use and how they put them together to create this particular emotion and effect. Listening to other artists is also vital. Learning from their flows, their styles, and the words they choose to deliver. And never forget, improvising is key." Azad was an imitating looking guy, but he had heart of gold and a good sense of humor. He was a great writer, and I was amazed when he showed me a few of his lyrics on paper. As I read them through, I started to understand his strategy, a word-playing game, like a crossword puzzle. Azad explained that to be a good writer, one needs to have a good vocabulary of words, and the best way to do this is by reading and listening. He suggested that I could read shairis, watch Punjabi movies, and even glance at the sports section of the newspaper to get some inspiration. I quickly realized Azad was right. As I read news about hockey and kabaddi, felt my creative juices flowing, and I was suddenly full of ideas. Azad was a great rapper. He had been rapping for a long time, and he knew what it took to write a good rap. He could come up with rhymes easily, and he knew the importance of coming up with multiple rhymes. As he started to teach me about writing rap lyrics, he had a notepad and pen with him, and he said, "I'll write one rhyme word on this notepad, and then we will multiply it into 20 rhyming words. Okay?" That's what I called rhyming. That's what I call creativity. And this is what a real rapper does. Azad then took me to Genius.com, a website famous for rap song lyrics. He showed me how the lyrics of the rap songs were written and how they included slang words that most people didn't understand. He also showed me how the lines had multiple meanings and references to other references. I had to be versatile in my style. He explained to me that words have to flow and every word has to be there in the first place, even before you begin. Azad helped me to realize what I needed to do to become a better rapper. His advice was invaluable, and I knew that with his help, I could become the best rapper I could be. It had been a long day of exploration for me and Azad. I said my goodbyes to him, but before we parted ways, we exchanged numbers so we could stay in touch. I knew this was probably the last time I would see him, but I was also excited for the stories I would tell when I returned back to my village. After an exhausted journey back to the village at night, I returned to my makeshift bed and quickly fell asleep, tight with sweet dreams. I woke up the next morning to the sound of the village kids playing outside. I remembered one of the kids, namely Arman, who used to be a regular visitor to my home. He always had great admiration and appreciation for my rap lyrics. Little did I know that Arman had a surprise waiting for me when he arrived at my home later that day. With a glitter of ghee in his eyes, he asked me to accompany him to a nearby Punjabi school, where he wanted me to perform a few of my rap songs for the kids in the assembly hall. A wave of joyfulness entered my heart, as this was a beautiful opportunity to inspire the children. When we reached the school, the children were already gathered up in the assembly hall and were eagerly waiting for my performance. I could see the little ones smiling in anticipation. After a few minutes of introspection, I started rapping, my voice booming and echoing throughout the assembly hall. I could hear each and every kid humming along with my beats. Arman and I talked about the special moments later that day, which concluded with us thinking how a simple visit to the village had given us one of the biggest rewards of our lives. The next day, I went to the village square. A few of the kids from the school came over to thank me. They said, "Thank you, sir, for that beautiful performance. You made our day with your songs. We felt like we had talent in our village. We felt special." Their words touched me. I hugged them, and I said, always keep striving and never give up on your dreams. Take knowledge from this experience. Never stop learning and growing, and never forget that your village is proud of you for your success so far. This experience was a life lesson for all of us. From then on, most people in the village started respecting me for what I did and respected my art. That village kid who had taken me to the school became my true friend for life. I was so glad I was able to bless the children with my music. And this experience will always remain one of the most memorable ones for me. I'd been away from home for a few months, working on various projects in India. Little did I know that I wouldn't be alone on my journey. One day, I received a message from Terry Mardi. He told me that he was also in India, attending a music conference in Mumbai the following week. I was amazed at the coincidence. It felt like the universe had decided to reunite us by placing us in the same place. I was curious to see what the conference was all about, so I asked Terry about it. He said it was a platform to inspire and support young artists, and it promised to be a spectacular event. I felt very excited for him, especially since there would be opportunities to collaborate and network with many amazing people. I thought it would be wonderful to see Terry if he wanted to meet up. He said that he'd love to. A week before the conference, I asked my dad what his plans were. He had no plans. I suggested that we went to Mumbai, and he asked me what was there for me. I replied that Terry was over there, as it might be a good opportunity for me to meet some people in the music industry. He knew what Mumbai was like. Having travelled around most of India, he used to be an athlete. But I convinced him that we were only going for the music, and he said he would think about it. A couple of days later, he got back to me and said we could go. He said that he would be able to get the tickets booked for the plane and wanted me to book the hotel in Mumbai. After searching online, I called the hotel to secure a reservation, and a man answered on the other side. He said that no problem at all. I can book you in and expect us in a few days' time. I was eccentric. Me and my dad started packing. We arrived at Mumbai airport and took a taxi to the hotel. The taxi was a black Toyota in colour. We were both excited to be going to Mumbai to meet Terry and experience something new. He had booked the hotel and the flights, and our flight was due to leave from Chandigarh airport at 3:25 p.m. From our village, it was a couple of hours' drive, so we left early at around 10 a.m. with our driver ready to take us there. After a couple of hours of driving, we finally reached the airport. We took our suitcases out of the car and said goodbye to the driver. We went inside and checked our luggages, then proceeded to the boarding gates. The plane flight was uneventful, but we were both filled with excitement and anticipation for what we were about to experience. We arrived at Mumbai airport. We collected our luggage and headed out to find a taxi. After a few minutes waiting, a taxi pulled up. A driver told us, "I can take you anywhere in Mumbai." This cab driver had a cab. This cab was a red Honda Civic. As we sat inside the cab, the driver asked us, "Where would you want to go?" We showed him the address of the hotel, but he looked at us strangely. The cab driver was a clean-shaved, small person. "Is this where you really want to go?" he asked us in a strange tone. We both nodded our heads in agreement. "How much for the taxi ride?" we asked. 200 rupees, he replied, merely £2. We handed the driver the money and he began to drive. As we drove along the winding roads, I couldn't help but notice the strange glances the driver kept giving us in the rearview mirror. I began to feel uneasy and I could sense that my dad was feeling the same. The driver then slowed down as we approached the hotel. He turned around to face us and said, "You know, I've been driving this route for years, and I've never seen anyone come here before. Are you sure this is the right place?" We both nodded and decided to get out of the cab. I couldn't shake the feeling that something strange was going on. My dad and I looked at each other in disbelief. We were supposed to be in a nice hotel, but this place looked like a slum. Rubbish was thrown everywhere across the street, and strange people walked around us. Was this really where the hotel was? We finally arrived at the address, and my dad insisted that the driver wait for us while we checked it out. As we approached the building, it looked more and more like a graveyard. Was this really the hotel? My dad opened the door, and we were met with a strange sight. A man was sitting with his bare feet sticking out of his chair. We were both taken aback. My dad muttered something like, "What the hell is this? Where are we? What's going on? What on earth?" Just then, we noticed a man standing near the taxi. He had our entire luggage with him. We realized this was our driver, and he had been waiting outside the whole time. He had seen the state of this place and wanted to make sure that we were safe. My dad was always street smart, always warning me to stay alert and aware of my surroundings. He didn't like it when I would wear earphones and not pay attention when I went outside. I finally understood why he was so cautious and conscious. We decided to leave the place where we were and got into the taxi. I tried messaging Terry, but he didn't reply. Thankfully, Pritesh answered the phone. I explained what had happened, and he said I should go to a hotel where he had stayed previously, in Juhu. He sent me the address, and we went there. The hotel was much better than the place where we went. We checked in and went to bed for the night. I was relieved to find a safe place to stay, and thankful for my dad's street smart. Next morning, Terry and Pritesh came to the hotel and greeted us. They excitedly started talking about the upcoming music conference as we were in the cab on the way to the venue. As soon as we arrived, I was in awe of the sheer size of the place. There were artists, businessmen, A&Rs, labels, record producers, promoters, and much more. And I knew this was exactly the place I needed to be. At the age of 24, I was surrounded by so many big names in the music industry, including Universal and Sony. There were even some famous artists from India, and the refreshments they had put out for everyone were incredible. Once the conference had ended, we headed to the Blue Frog in Mumbai, one of the finest and opulent music venues in the city. Everyone had the chance to speak and present their ideas. I was especially interested in what Terry had to say about creative control. He talked about how young people should have their freedom to make music with whomever they choose, no matter what origin or talent. It was a truly inspiring speech that I am sure will stay with me for a long time. It had been a long day of networking and meeting interesting people. Pritz had just arrived with a few of his boys, and they looked like they were from the ghetto, wearing their snapback hats and hip-hop gear. Pritesh said to me, "Yo, what's good, illustrator? Let me introduce Swadesi to you." I was amazed to find out that Swadesi was a hip-hop group from the slums of Mumbai. They rapped in a unique flow that was unlike anything I had ever heard before. There were two co-founder members of the group, MC Mavali and MC Thordford, rest in peace. They had created the group and were happy to meet me. We immediately started dropping a few bars over a beatbox that Shankaracharya, a UFC fighter, had put together. Shankaracharya was a good friend with the group and was happy to join us. We promised to touch base before I left Mumbai and to make a mini documentary of the group. A Nigerian brother who was visiting Mumbai at the time agreed to shoot the documentary. It was amazing to see how things came together so perfectly, and meeting these talented rappers was truly inspiring. I knew that I was going to take this experience and use it to create something great, an experience never to be forgotten. We had one last night to explore Mumbai before we had to leave, and the heat was almost unbearable. We decided to try some coconut water to cool us down and went to Juhu Beach. As we were walking around, we saw a man dressed up as a Baba with a kamandal in his hand. We were intrigued and thought he might be a spiritual teacher or a guru. But as we got closer, it became clear that he was just sitting on the floor to ask for money. It was a bit of a shock to see how people survived on the streets, but my dad said we needed to step out of our comfort zone and be aware of our surroundings. It was a culture shock to see how people were living and what was going on in this country. We decided to go to Haji Ali, a holy place, to pay our respects. Unfortunately, even there, we were not safe from people trying to make money off us. My dad reminded me to stay close to him and not to trust anyone suspicious. Everywhere we looked, there were posters of missing children, with their photos on the posters. It was heartbreaking to witness, and it made us realize what a huge city Mumbai was. With so much going on, we had encountered such a variety of experiences in one day, and it was definitely a learning curve. We were grateful for the chance to explore the city, but were also relieved to be leaving the next day. It was the night before I was to leave Mumbai and go back to Punjab. I had just received a call from Pritesh. He informed me that Terry was not well and wouldn't be able to attend the farewell party. He then asked me if I wanted to join him and the Swadesi crew for a mini documentary. I was excited at the chance to meet the Mumbai street boys, as I was a newbie to hip-hop. I agreed, and Pritesh gave me a location to meet the crew. When I arrived, I was greeted by MC Mavali, Dorford, and the cameraman from Nigeria. We started off with an introduction and then began to rap one by one. We talked about the scenery and captured different angles of the footage. We took photos and exchanged socials and numbers. Everyone was humble and passionate about hip-hop, just like me. After the constructive and productive night, we said our goodbyes and went back to the hotel. The experience I had in Mumbai was life-changing. It gave me so much inspiration and motivation to show the world my skills. As we were leaving the airport, I started to rap a song I had written about crooked cops, poverty and freedom. The beat was a Dr. Dre type beat, and it reverberated through the airport. People stopped in their tracks and looked at us. I could feel the energy in the airport, and I loved it. As we were leaving the airport and about to board on the airplane, a police officer approached us. He told us that our song had torn the police force into pieces. Not all cops are like that. Didn't you hear him? He said not all cops are like that, my dad replied, and laughed. I felt a rush of joy that my words had touched others that were listening. Rapping was something I loved to do, in front of people, or audience or not. When I was in my zone, I went into a state of meditation where nothing and no one could interrupt me. It was a powerful feeling, and I was grateful that I had the chance to express myself in such a way. The song was about something important to me, and I was proud to be able to share it with the world. I didn't know if it would make a difference or not, but I had done my best, and that was all that mattered. Suddenly, my dad's phone began to ring. Ring, 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 ring. He answered it, and after a brief conversation, he said that it was Hobby Taliwal on the phone. He wanted to speak to me. "How are you doing, illustrator?" he asked. "All good, Uncle Ji," I replied. "I was calling because there is a show in Patiala University in 2 days, and they are looking for an opening act and to open up for Emmy Virk and a few other talented Punjabi singers. Would you like to perform?" I was filled with excitement. I had always dreamed of performing on a big stage like this. "Yes, I would love to," I exclaimed. "Okay, great. Get ready for it. We'll see you there, Hobby said before he hung up. My family was so proud of me and encouraged me to practice hard for the show. I was so excited to perform in front of such big audience and alongside Emmy Virk. It felt like a dream come true. The day had come when he arrived in Patiala for the show. I was in awe as I stepped out of the car, my eyes wide with amazement. I had never seen a university like this before. It was so different from the university back in the UK. Everywhere I looked, there were thousands of people, at least 700 to 800 students, teachers, headmasters, and other staff members, all gathered together to witness homegrown talent. The energy was propelling. Everyone was talking and laughing, cheering and clapping, and the music was blaring. I felt a wave of excitement as I looked around the university grounds. There were live musicians on stage, playing their hearts out for the artists who were performing. I watched in wonder as a group of dancers took to the stage and performed an incredible routine. Everyone was mesmerized by their grace and skill. After that, a singer came up and sang a beautiful song that left everyone in tears. I had never seen anything like this before. The love and passion of these students and teachers and their university and the talent they were showcasing was truly inspiring. I was so proud to be part of this incredible experience. I had a few minutes to warm up before I had to go on stage, so I closed my eyes and focused on the words of the songs that I was about to perform. I felt an energy surge through my veins as I heard the opening notes of my first song, Culture Aid. I sang with all the passion and emotion I could muster, and the audience responded in a kind, goodwill and gesture. The second song, Zindagi, was more upbeat, and I was able to really let loose and get the crowd moving to the groove. I felt like a rock star as I watched the audience sing along and dance to the music. Once the second song ended, I felt a rush of adrenaline, and I knew it was time for the encore. I had practiced additional song entitled Ma, but had only minutes to decide if I could perform it. Taking a deep breath, I decided to go for it. The audience erupted with cheers and applause as I began the song. I felt like I was on top of the world as I sang my heart out. By the time the song was over, the crowd got going on their feet, clapping and cheering. As I took my final bow and exceeded the stage, I knew that I had made my dad proud. That moment was one of the highlights of my life, and I will never ever forget it. In the morning, we woke up and got ready to leave Chandigarh. We had heard so much about Kamal Boparai from Hobby Singh, the re-owned music producer, so we were excited to meet him. After a few hours, we arrived in Chandigarh and parked our car. We went into the office and were greeted by a pretty lady on the reception. We told her we had come to meet Kamal Boparai, and she went to call him. Soon, a man with spiky hair came from the other room and shook our hands. He welcomed us into his office with warm open hands. He showed us his company's YouTube channel. He told us that this was the kind of artist he was looking for and handed us a contract. He also told us to add him on Facebook so we could talk further. It was a sampler of what he was looking for. We parted ways after that and went back home. We had so much to go through and the contract seemed complicated, so we decided to wait until Terry got better. He had been unwell for a few weeks, so we thought it would be better if he could look through the contract first. After weeks of waiting, I finally received a message from Terry. He told me he had been very unwell, suffering from malaria that had taken a toll on his body, and he hadn't been able to move an inch. He told me he had fully recovered, and I asked him if he received the contract. I told him, yes, I have received it. It is from Kamal Boparai, owner of Angel Records. It is a record label with many famous artists from Punjab, America, Canada, and other countries. He told me that he would review the contract and get back to me when he could. It was then when I received a message from Prince Singh, a Portuguese singer and a dancer. He was well known for his luck with the ladies and was known as a ladies' man. He asked me to call him when it was convenient to do so, as he was in the UK and I was in India. When we talked, he told me he was getting frustrated with Terry's slow progress. He said he had been hanging around with Terry everywhere, but nothing was happening. He suggested that we do our own thing and that Terry is only a time waster. Yet he did not know that Terry was suffering with malaria. I thought about what he had said, but I had the feeling that I should keep learning from Terry. He was a professional and wasn't charging me money for his advice. I decided to continue to be mentored by him. I had patience, and eventually, good things will come. Around the same time, my friend Arbaz signed a contract with a Dutch record company. Another friend of mine from Leicester, a cover track singer that had made a deal with a European label too. Arbaz Kasim was the artist living in the same city as me. We had been friends for years, and I was proud of his success. His career was taking off, and he recently signed a 10-year contract with a European label from the Netherlands. At first, I was excited for him, but then I started to hear about the contract. It seemed like the label had taken advantage of him. They had complete control over his music. He was unable to make creative decisions, and they owned the masters. Basically, Arbaz was a slave to the label, with invincible handcuffs, for a decade. I was angry that such a vulnerable artist would be taken advantage of by these predators. I could see how easily it could happen. I decided to talk to him and warned him about the dangers of the industry and to always do his research. I told him about 50 Cent, who started with nothing and was now a multi-millionaire and the founder of his own label, G-Unit. I told him that was the way to do it, and that's what this audiobook is about. Arbaz was grateful for the advice and promised me to be more careful in the future. He was determined to make most of the deal and to eventually get out of it. He was determined to make it work. I was proud of him and I wished him all the best. After speaking to Arbaz, I told Terry what had happened to my friend. Terry took a deep breath and I looked at him with an expression of admiration. "You really learned a lot from Arbaz's story," he said. "It's not a fantasy land. It's a hard and competitive business. You have to be prepared if you want to make it. That's why I suggest you read up on the music business. It's all about being smart and making the right decisions." I started to take it all in and took the advice to heart. I read the book cover to cover and started to understand the game of music. I learned how to choose the right deals, negotiate terms, and understand the business side of things. I also realized that music was only 5% of the quotation, and the other 95% was all business related. After I finished reading books, I was starting to see the bigger picture, and it gave me a lot of confidence in taking the next step to my career. As I was now aware of different kinds of deals and what I should be looking out for, I knew my own worth and what I should be getting from my deals, and I was now confident in my own ability to negotiate and mended the deal to my own interest. The contract has to be versatile and fit for purpose, and the producer must be flexible, at ease with this. I decided to take a break from my thoughts and enjoyed the rest of my last week in India, Punjab. I continued my journey towards my village of Khatkar Kala. The village was beautiful as I remembered it, with its famous museum dedicated to Martyr Bhagat Singh, the Sikh temple, Chandaji, and the peaceful atmosphere. It was a place of solace and inspiration. Shortly after, I received a message from Terry saying that the contract from Kamal Boparai was too demanding. Terry was a true believer that every unsigned artist should have the right to own their own masters, so they could benefit from their earnings and pass it on to their grandchildren, or even make a positive investment with it. Knowing how passionate Terry was about this issue, I decided to take this advice and not sign the contract. I knew Hobby wouldn't be pleased with my decision, but I wasn't about to sign my life away and be left with peanuts at the end of it. I had no hard feelings towards hobby, but I had to follow my gut and make the decision that was best for me. It was a decision, mind over matter, and to do a lengthy duration. Maybe the commercial game wasn't for me. Maybe the universe had something else planned for me, something more uplifting to my soul and vibrant. I had to trust the universe to take me where I needed to go. I was sure whatever it was, it would be better than what Gamelan hobby had planned out for me. I returned back home with a heavy heart, knowing that this was my last week in India, Punjab. I thanked my grandparents for all the love and support that they had given me, and I promised to come back soon. I was ready to take on the challenge that awaited me and fight for what I believed in. After a month-long trip to Punjab, I had an overwhelming urge to continue exploring, to perform and to gain more exposure, so I boarded a plane back to the UK, feeling inspired and motivated by the wondrous things I had witnessed. I immediately started emailing up-and-coming events, eager to make the most of the summer while it was still here. After a few weeks, I finally started receiving replies from Mellors, hip-hop events, and other promoters, labels, and producers. I was determined to make my brand heard. It was Illustrated the Desi Rapper. I spent that summer traveling and performing from place to place, learning more about my weaknesses and strengths. I was humbled to encounter some famous people along the way, such as Johnny Singh, Munna Singh, Humble the Poet, True School, and the Don Raja himself, Apache Indian. I was also fortunate enough to be guided by Terry, who helped me become more confident in my abilities. For the next year, I worked hard on my tracks and experimented with new styles, determined to create something original that sounded like me. I kept practicing with the guidance of Terry and eventually crafted a masterclass on my own. I was ready to take on the world, on from local vocal to global. The day had finally arrived when Agyapal Singh Bath, my dad's friend, came to the UK for a wedding for his close friend. He had been looking forward to this day for weeks, excited to see his old friend to give him a speech at the wedding. My dad, my brother, and I were so excited to meet Uncle G, Agyapal Singh Bath, in the UK. We had heard so much about him from my dad, and we were eagerly to finally meet him. We arrived at Ramgarhia Hall, where he was staying, and were immediately enveloped in a lively atmosphere of celebration. From the far corner of the hall, we heard a man's voice laughing and dancing and full of life. We knew it had to be my Uncle G, and it was. He greeted us warmly, calling my dad, "Oh, balle balle Roshana. What's up, Illustrator? I've seen your rap videos. You got the talent." We laughed and joked. My dad hadn't seen Agyapal for 10 years. My uncle was so excited for us. "Come to the States. Everything is happening over there." We were all so excited to hear this. We felt a rush of excitement as we heard that. We continued to celebrate, finally headed to the wedding at the Gurdwara. This is the time when I was experimenting a certain style of rapping and vocalizing my own lyrics. I realized for myself that I was far more conscious in my lyrics, and the wording of my verses were consisting with deeper meanings. At that time, I was into meditating, nature, and yoga. This practice made me feel at ease, tranquil, and spiritual. I had to conform this exercising and practice with Terry. I rang him up, and he truly and surely confirmed that my style of rapping, the beats, and the lyrics were definitely full of ultimate consciousness. I reiterated the word breathe a number of times to him, and to add as a slip of a tongue, on that occasion, I said the word breathe in a telephone conversation. Terry explained, "Yo, bro, that's your name from now on. That's your name. Breathe is your name. Yep, that's your name. Breathe Rapper is your new name." Prince and I had been friends for a long time, since I had been back from India. The only time we caught up was over the phone. So when I called him one morning to check in, we both had a lot to catch up on. When I asked him how he was doing, he was excited to tell me that he had some good news. He had come across a well-known UK record producer who was interested in signing him, Surinder Ratan. Prince had always been a risk-taker, so when he heard about a well-known record producer interested in signing him, he didn't hesitate. He immediately sent back the contract, not even bothering to read it. It wasn't until I asked him about it that he revealed the name of the producer. Surinder Ratan, I gasped, and I was startled. I had a bad experience with him before, and I knew he was a shady character. I quickly told Prince what had happened to me and warned him about the dangers of signing a contract without reading it. Prince listened to my advice and decided to get a musical lawyer to read the contract for him. He was surprised to find out that the contract was for 5 years instead of the usual 1 or 2. He could tell that Terry, his mentor, had tried to give him advice about the contract, but he was too impatient to listen. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "I wanted to get famous and have a lot of people know my talent," he replied. I couldn't help but feel a little worried about my friend. I had seen firsthand what Ratan was capable of, and I feared that Prince was over his head. But I knew that my friend was determined, and I hoped that he could make the best of the situation. I wished him luck, and we both parted ways. I couldn't help but feel a little uneasy as I watched him walk away. I had faith in Prince. He would be able to get Surinder to mend the contract, but I knew that this was going to be a difficult journey. I only hoped that he could come out of this unscratched. One rainy afternoon, I received a message from Audiobook Uncleji, a flyer of a mela with the main acts being none other than Jasmine Sandler's. It was to be held at the Bull Run Park in Virginia State, which happened every year, and I was intrigued, saying it sounded like an amazing opportunity. And Audiobook Uncleji said I could get you to open up for some amazing acts. I then told Terry about this exciting chance and sent him the flyer. With quick and enthusiastic thumbs up, I knew that I had to make it happen. With my heart full of excitement, I began to make preparation for this trip. As the plane descended into Washington, D.C. airport, I could feel the excitement radiating throughout me. The security around the airport was on high alert, but it was a pleasant experience. After having my passport checked, I stepped out the airport and I called Uncle G. His energetic tone told me he was pleased to hear that I had arrived. He told me that his friend, a taxi driver, would come pick me up in a red Honda 7-seater that I had never seen in the UK. I waited for what felt like forever, but then I finally saw the car coming down the road. I waved my hand to show him I was there. We greeted each other and I sat in the car. On the drive, we talked about Punjabi music, lyrics, and poems. I was surprised and delighted to hear that the driver was also a writer. He told me some of his lyrics that he had written, and the depth and the meaning of the Shari-style poetry blew my mind. I was in awe of his words and how different and unique they were. We exchanged contact details before he dropped me off at Uncle G's house. To my surprise, when I knocked, the door opened, and I was greeted by the whole family. There were so many of them. They all seemed so friendly. They welcomed me warmly, asked me about myself, and treated me like one of their own. At the front of the family was Masiji, an elderly lady with a kind face and a gentle voice. She was the main lady of the family. She was always cooking something in the kitchen. Whenever she cooked, it was with so much love that it could be tasted in every bite. Next to her was Didi, a younger woman with a soft and caring manner. She always spoke gently to whoever was new in the house, and she would often give me a reassuring smile whenever I seemed down. Finally, there was Baji, Didi's husband, who was often found in the garden tidying the plants. He was a calm and wise presence in the house, and it seemed that we connected quite quickly. That day, I was welcomed into the family with warm heart and open arms. I felt like I was at home. I realized that I found my place in the world, surrounded by so much love and support. I was truly fortunate to have found such a wonderful family. Uncle G was the force to be reckoned with. He had a presence that seemed to draw people in, especially when he was presenting on TV. He presented a show that talked about showbiz and politics, and it was a popular one that everyone in the family was watching. But that wasn't the only thing that Uncle G was involved in. He was also the brains behind the United Punjabi Mela, a huge festival that attracted top artists from around the world and was sponsored by charities and organizations. I was lucky enough to get the chance to work with him, which is why I was so excited to be chosen to help out with the festival. I had a chance to see firsthand how Uncle G worked and the way he operated, and it was something I had never come across before. Uncle G was a master of his craft. He had a way of getting people to trust him and come to him for advice. He was a great leader and was in touch with many, so he could make sure that things went smooth as possible. His professionalism was astounding, and it showed through in every aspect of his work. He had a personality that was so clear and present, and it was incredible to watch. Uncle G had a way of cutting through the noise and getting people to focus on the important things. No matter how big or small the task was, Uncle G always gave his best. He was the driving force behind the success of the United Punjabi Mela, and his hard work was evident in every aspect of the event. After a while, I heard a knock on the door and a loud, cheerful voice calling out, "Welcome to the States! Welcome to the States!" I knew it was Uncle G before I opened the door. He hugged me and welcomed me with a smile. We sat down and talked for a while, catching up on life and all the things happening back home. Then out of the blue, he asked me, "Are you ready for the Mela?" "Ready or not, here I come, he said. It turned out that he meant the cultural festival that was taking place in a few weeks. He said he'd been rehearsing every day and was eager to show off his traditional skills. I was humbled by his enthusiasm and told him I've been practicing too. He praised me for my consistency and said that's what he would like to see. He said that if I kept up my efforts, the result would come after that. In the days leading up to the performance, I spent time rehearsing and drawing inspiration from nature around me. I was near a river, and the sight of the flowing water made me feel connected to something larger than myself. I was reminded of the importance of my performance and the potential impact it could have on the world. One day, before the event was taking place, Uncle G took me to the park to see how the setup was going. As we arrived, we seen everyone passionately working. The stage was huge, and I could feel the energy radiating from it. As Uncle G and I made our way across it, I couldn't help but imagine what it would feel like to be standing there, in front of millions of people, performing. I could feel a tingle of excitement bubbling up inside me. We had the chance to meet the United Punjabi team, and they were all so sincere and hard-working. I could see that they put their all into making the show something that people could remember. I could feel the passion radiating from them. The lineup for the day was amazing. Jasmine Sanders was performing, as well as many other American, Canadian, and Indian artists. My music was conscious and of essence, and I carried that with me wherever I went. I was opening the show, which was a great honor, and I felt confident that I could do a great job. The big day arrived, and I was ready to get out there and make an impact. I knew that I had the chance to connect with so many people, and I couldn't wait to see the results. I had been preparing for weeks for my rap performance. I knew exactly what songs I wanted to rap and the freestyle pieces I wanted to perform. I had worked hard to combine the lyrics of Hope and Mitra Piyarenu, Rab Di Mehr, with my own flow and emotion. When I finally stepped onto the stage, I felt my spiritual energy become one with my performance. I was up and ready with positive vibes to connect with my audience. The audience watched in awe as I mixed my lyrics I had practiced with some freestyles. I even made eye contact with some of my listeners, as if I was sending pureness to them through my rapping. I could see the admiration and delight in their eyes, and the crowd began to cheer when I finished. Agyapal Uncle-ji, the host, came up to me when I was done and congratulated me. He also made sure everyone knew where to find me on social media. I thanked him, as well as the audience, for listening and enjoying my performance. The performance is on YouTube, on the United Punjabi channel. Afterwards, as I walked away from the stage, I felt proud. I had done something I had never done before, and I had done it well. I was happy, knowing that my performance had been a success. I felt productive. The crowd had been building throughout the night, and it seemed like every artist just made it bigger and bigger. When it came time for Jasmine Sandler's to take the stage, the anticipation was at an all-time high. The atmosphere was electric as Jasmine began her performance, but the hype soon spilled over into chaos. The crowd had become so large that it was impossible for the security team to keep everyone off the stage. People were climbing over each other and pushing past the bouncers, and the few remaining bouncers were simply trying to push people off the stage in order to preserve their own safety. Just to mention, these things can happen. I could only stand and watch as the audience started to turn violent. I was helpless as the chaos ensued, and I felt terrible for Jasmine and her crew, who had to witness this madness. This was not the way the night was supposed to end, and yet it was ending in a frenzy of chaos and confusion. It all depends on audience behavior and how security deals with it. In the end, the organizers declared the performance over and the venue began to clear out. As the last stragglers left, I couldn't help but feel disappointed that the night had ended this way. Despite the chaos, I still remember how the crowd had roared when Jasmine had first taken the stage, and I know that this experience will stay with me for a long time. I was so excited to fly back to the UK after a few weeks in the US. Agyapal Uncle-ji said I had done very well, getting the interview done and creating some new links. I had made some great friends and performed at one of the top festivals in Virginia. When I arrived back home, I told my family all about my experience, and they were thrilled to hear about it. I had made contact with some great music professionals, and now I had a few shows coming up to perform at. Just as I was about to start setting up for my next show, I received a call from Prince Singh. It had been a while since we last spoke. Baji, Surinder Ratan cannot mend the contract. It gives him complete control over my music. This meant that Prince couldn't release anything without Surinder Ratan's permission, and even if he was able to do so, Surinder would want a huge cut out of the profit. Cannot mend means it's not negotiable, not flexible or versatile. Prince was completely stuck, and despite months of trying to get out of the contract, Surinder kept stalling. He felt completely helpless and resigned to his fate. That's when I reminded Prince about my story with Surinder, and to be careful of industry people who could take advantage of you if you weren't careful. I also reminded him that it was important to get paperwork read by musical lawyers, even if it meant paying out your own pocket, and never get himself in the same situation again. He soon realized how important it was to be aware of potential exploitation techniques, and he vowed to do whatever it took to save himself from them. Terry had been working crazy hours for months, but no one knew why. All his colleagues knew that he was busy with something, as he had been coming in late and leaving early. Terry had been working on a plethora of creative projects. He was directing a drama that was aired on Sky One called Premature. He had created a fashion show for women and he had organized Desi circus events and Brahma Nada. Not before long, Terry had become a household name. His ideas made waves in the British Asian community, and he was respected and admired by many. As for me, I wanted to take a break from it all. I wanted to take the time to reflect on my own journey and focus on my own well-being, so I decided to unplug from the world for a while. After a year or so, I received a call from Agyapal Uncleji. I was elated. After all, he had been my mentor and supported me. I was always inspired by his words of wisdom and guidance. So when he invited me to join the show in the US again, I was beside myself with joy, and yet another frenzy of spiritual and tranquil energy. The show was going to be huge, with some of the biggest names in the music industry attending. Jazz Dharmi, Surinder Sati, Miss Pooja, Harbhajan Mann, Gursevik Mann, and Dolly Shah were on the menu inside the venue, and I was performing alongside them. My heart was racing, and I excitedly told Terry that I had booked my tickets to the US again. "Bro, that's mad," he exclaimed. He had just informed me that I was going to be in the city around the same time, at an event that he'd been invited to. It was a huge affair, attended by some of the biggest names in the music industry: Arjun, Bohemia, Fateh, Kamal Raja, Rackstar, Jazz Dharmi, The Prophecy, and Zack Knight. "No way," I said, in disbelief. It seemed like a dream come true. The night before the flight to the USA, my family had gathered around to say goodbye and wish me luck. I was humbled by the opportunity that had been given to me, but I was also apprehensive about what I would be doing once I arrived in the UK. All my family was positive and sent me on my way. At 7 a.m. UK time, I arrived at Washington, D.C. airport. I felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Finally, I was there, the place I was dreaming of. I was also confident as I memorized my lyrics. Once I had settled in, my Uncle G invited me to meet his friend, a fantastic musician, pianist, and singer. We drove to the local radio station where he was giving an interview. After he had finished, we went to speak to him. His name was Asif, a brilliant Pakistani singer/pianist. Asif was curious to see what I had to offer, and he asked me to rap a 16-bar from one of my freestyles. Asif was amazed by my performance, and he said, "I love the energy you bring, my man." 16-bar is a verse, consisting of 9 sentences of meaningful lyrics, and I was very happy to make an impression on him. He then asked me to join him on the piano. He started to play, and all I could do is stare in amazement. He was playing without even looking at the keys, and he even closed his eyes for 30 seconds while playing. It was incredible. Once he had finished, he said, "Grab the mic and start rapping." I did as he said, as we both had an abundance of energy. We made a great performance. My Uncle G was very impressed with the outcome. Asif was an impressive musician from the moment I met him at the radio station. His eyes twinkled with joy whenever he played his piano, and I was entranced. He communicated with the instrument as if it was his partner in crime. When I told him about the Mela, he was thrilled to be part of the show. I wanted to make sure that we were well rehearsed so we could have the best show. We decided to do some intensive rehearsing in the studio. It was peaceful and tranquil, and it was the perfect environment for us to practice undisturbed. I meditated in the mornings and the evenings, and after that, we would go to the studio and rehearse. The rehearsals helped me to stay focused, and I gradually learned how to be in sync with Asif when he played the music. We also discussed the notes and discussed what we wanted to play in the show. Harbhajan Mann was the headline for the up-and-coming show in Virginia, and I had sent Terry pics and videos of what I had been up to in preparation. I was excited to perform, and I knew that the songs I had planned to perform, such as Hope and a few others, would be well received. The day of the show arrived and I was ready to dazzle the crowd. Asif played the keyboard in the background as I rapped into the microphone. But something was off. There were only a few people in the audience, and it seemed like all our hard work was going to be for nothing. I and Asif continued the show, but the lack of a larger audience really dampened our spirits. When the performance was finally over, we both left feeling deflated and disappointed. We were both sad, and all our hard work had been for nothing. And I thought to myself that perhaps it would have been better to stay in the studio and to work on music that could possibly be appreciated by more people. As the Mela finished and all the artists had finished their set, Uncle G grabbed my hand and sat me in the car. We drove off, humming songs from the Mela, and then headed off for a dinner. Uncle G excitingly mentioned that we were going to network with some stars. When we arrived at the restaurant, I was overwhelmed by the sheer number of people in the room. There were many people dressed in expensive clothes, talking and laughing. Uncle G whispered in my ear and said, "Don't worry, they will come and sit with us on the reserved VIP table." Uncle G expected that the artists would be warm and welcoming, but that wasn't the case. They had a sort of aura about them that seemed to repel any sort of connection with the people that had made the Mela successful. It seemed like they were so content living in their own world, one that was exclusive to them. Uncle G and I soon realized that we weren't welcomed in this world, and so we finished our meal quickly and left. I couldn't help but feel a bit of a regret as we both drove away, but I was also grateful for the experience. It taught me that no matter how much worldly success one may have, some things are completely out of reach and unattainable for some, due to the face-fitting and image. Despite not being part of the industry, I soon began to see the bigger picture. I observed everything around me and how music was becoming an increasingly global phenomenon. Yet, I wasn't a famous artist. I was filled with excitement as I excitingly told Uncle G that I was leaving for New York in 2 days. Uncle G seemed impressed as he asked me what was my purpose of the trip. I smiled and told him that Terry, who was out there, had invited me to a huge Desi event with some of the biggest rappers and singers performing. Uncle G's face lit up and he said, "Go for it, have fun." He then asked me about my accommodation arrangements. I told him that I would look for a hotel in downtown New York. Uncle G gave me a stern look and said, "Don't be silly, breathe. I have a contact for you where you can stay with a lovely Sikh family from Queens, NY. My heart raced as I stepped out the cab and took in the sights of New York City for the first time. I had seen it in the movies, but nothing compared to being there and feeling the energy and life that was radiating from the streets. As I was exploring, I received a call from Uncle G. "What's up, Breathe? I heard you have arrived in New York. There is an opportunity for you at one of the studios in the city. You should go there now," he said. I didn't hesitate. I thanked my Uncle G and rushed inside the building. As I approached the building, I was greeted by a friendly receptionist who had been expecting me. I had been referred by Sunny Mully from United Punjabi and was here for an audition and interview. I had been told to go to the changing room to get dressed into my artist clothes, as I was going to have to rap live and be interviewed, a Punjabi show that was being hosted by one of the most famous comedian actors from Bhagwant Man's 420 hit series. I was a little nervous as I made my way to the changing rooms, but I knew I was ready. I quickly changed into my artist clothes and made sure my hair was groomed and my outfit was looking perfect. As I walked down the hallway and towards the studio, I felt my heart beating fast and faster. When I arrived, I was welcomed by all of the cast and crew from the show, and I could feel a wave of excitement coming over me. I was introduced to Jagtar Jaggi himself, and I shook his hand with a big smile on my face. Jagtar Jaggi glanced at his watch nervously, aware of the dwindling time. He had come up with an idea of doing a live rap and interview outdoors. An innovative but risky plan. He had thought to wear a Punjabi police uniform and do some acting to kick off the interview. The plan was set. Jagtar was in his appointed place. When the time came, I exited the store, and Jagtar was outside acting as if ready to stop and search me. The interviewer asked me to put my hands up, asking questions why I was there. I could feel the tension in the air as the interviewer went through the motion of a routine stop and search. But then, as if remembering something, Jagtar suddenly stopped and took a step back. He looked at me up and down, and then smiled. "Breathe, rapper, right? You're the rapper," he said. I nodded, relieved. He had been worried that his plan wouldn't work, but it had. The interview had officially begun with an unexpected twist. The next few minutes were a blur as I engaged in a conversing rap. He was impressed and asked me where the viewers could find me. I shared my social media and that was it. The interview and rap went well, and Jagtar promised me that the video would soon be edited and be sent to me. After that, I started making my way to the Sikh family's house. As I got there, I stepped up to the gate of the generous family's house, my heart racing and my palms sweating as I heard a deep bark of a large watchdog. I was expecting to see something small, like a friendly pooch, but instead I saw a huge pit bull. Its black eyes alerted, and its snarling face sending a message of warning. The postman was so scared, he simply left the parcel outside the gate, and I could see why. I had some experience with dogs, enough to know that if I showed fear, the situation would get even worse. Taking a deep breath, I slowly approached the gate, trying to remain cool, calm, and confident. The pit bull barked louder. But I kept walking until I was face to face with the huge canine. I didn't make any sudden movements, my eyes trained on the dog. After a few tense moments, one of the family members came over and opened the door, welcoming me into their home. The dog too seemed to recognize me and welcome me with a wag of its tail. I was relieved. And quickly stepped into the house, where I was greeted by the family with smiles and open arms. I had no idea what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised when the family that lived there welcomed me with open arms. They were so kind and hospitable, and made sure I had everything I needed. After settling in, I decided to message Terry to let him know that I had arrived safely and that I would be meeting him in a few days for the up-and-coming event, and gave me some tips on where to explore in New York. The next few days were a blur of sightseeing and getting to know my new surroundings. Everywhere I went, I was in awe of the beauty of the city. I had never seen anything like it before. It was the day I was exploring New York, I received a call from my Uncle G. He asked me how I was doing, but then he gave me the best news I could ever hear. He said that he had got me the opening rap act at a Punjabi film conference, which was being held by Gippy Gariwal's latest film, Subedar Joginder Singh. My heart was racing with excitement, and I was already thinking of the rap I was going to do. I decided to go with a Sufi mystic-styled rap, which had a lot of lyrical depth, and I felt the audience would resonate to. I also made sure to practice it a few times before the conference. It was a remarkable night when I was ready to share my talent to everyone in the room. There was a moment of silence when the beat dropped and I started rapping. My rap was like a continuous machine gun, spraying unlimited rounds. Everyone in the audience was stunned with what I was delivering. After I ended, everybody in the room clapped with unison. The host then introduced me as Breathe Rapper, a bilingual conscious rapper from the UK. The track is entitled Sufi Mystic, and it is about connecting to your inner core. That was the topic. Gippy Gariwal's crew came on stage. The host introduced Gippy to all of the audience, and she started talking more in English than in Punjabi. Gippy took that into consideration and said, "If you are going to organize a Punjabi show with Punjabi artists and listeners, then you need to go and learn Punjabi language first. It was quite embarrassing in front of all the people at the event. This incident taught me a very important lesson. If you are a Punjabi rapper or singer, it is important to learn the culture and the language. This incident was a real eye-opener, and I took it very seriously. When I called Terry the next day to see where he was, I expected him to be at the park or the local bar. Instead, he surprised me with an invitation to the Madison Square Garden Hotel. I was curious as to why he wanted to meet us there, but I knew it must be important, so I agreed. I arrived at the venue without further ado, with a sense of excitement and anticipation. Terry had told me that there would be some great artists and potential collaborations in the mix, and I couldn't wait to meet them. Terry had already gathered the group, and I was introduced to Sheer Mufasa, a young Desi artist from New Jersey. We talked about our creative passion, and I could tell that there was a special connection between us. Terry also introduced me to drummer Singh, a phenomenal drummer from Chicago. We quickly formed a bond, and he promised to teach me some of his unique rhythms. At 10 p.m, I was standing with my VIP pass in the back lounge of the music venue, and I could feel the energy of the night beginning to swell. Artists started to come in one by one, and I had the opportunity to meet some of them and network in the VIP lounge. As the show began to start, I made my way to the balcony to watch the performances. I was mesmerized by the confidence and personalities that these artists displayed on stage, and the way their voices complemented their performances. At the same time, Terry was filming from the stage, capturing every moment from the show. It was amazing to watch how music progressed from the early 80s to the present day, as each artist took the stage. Then came Bohemia's performance that sent the crowd into frenzy. It was an experience that I would never forget. The moment was electric. After the show ended, a few other artists stayed around for an after party. I felt that the crowd and the noise was interfering with my consciousness, tranquility and spirituality. I needed some time alone so I could process the night and reflect on what I had experienced. So I decided to go back to the hotel. Terry and the boys were still out, so I figured they would come back a bit later on, after the party. The next morning, I flied back to JFK, but I was still on a high from the experience. I had met some of my favourite rock stars and got to witness their performances firsthand. It was a great opportunity to see what it takes to be on the top. By high and top, I mean in tranquility terms. Before I flew back to the UK, home sweet home, Agyapal Uncle Ji phoned me. He was happy to have me in the family again and promised me to let me know if there were any other big events coming up soon. I thanked him for the call, and I told him I would be sure to let him know once I was safely back in the UK. My return journey was full of energy and creativity. I felt like I was on the brink of something new and exciting. There was a time when I was rehearsing and composing my lyrics and vocals in my garage studio. Pritesh, also known as Varia, rang me saying, "Where you at, bro? I will be there in 5 minutes." Literally, within 5 minutes, he was surely there. He turned up with a thunderous knock on the garage door. I was wondering how come that thunderous knock. No wonder. He had brought an entire entourage with him, a team of professionals and special artists, rap artists like Nazy the Bai, DMC, and Black Zang. I felt absolutely eccentric and thrilled and delighted to welcome the crew inside the garage studio. At the time, I was playing a standard reggae style beat, which I sang a freestyle on the spot there and then. Spontaneously, one of the artists joined in on the beat and freestyled flawlessly. Wow, what can I say? Nazy the Bai sprayed bars immaculately. DMC had the passion in her heart. Her charisma was flowing like the river. Black Zang came with an energetic tone. All three of them, what can I say? I'm speechless. I joined again to rap with lyrics, which I had made up in my head there and then. This freestyle session was an exciting experience because it was spontaneous and simultaneous. After the freestyle session, we went to the basketball court to get to know each other more, where they also said they will be performing at the South Bank Centre in 2 days' time. The day of the event came, and I travelled to London to go see artists perform their best at the South Bank Centre. As I arrived, the stage crew was setting up the event and making preparations to get everything ready. In the meantime, when I was outside the venue, I had seen Nazy walk towards me with a cigarette. It felt like he was stressed. I asked him, "Why do you smoke, bro?" He said, "Situations are not how they are supposed to be." He didn't really touch on the topic too much. Nonetheless, I kind of understood what he meant by that. As we all went backstage, I met up with Terry Mardy. I hadn't seen Terry for a while. He had put on some size. Looked like he was working out. He did tell me he stopped eating non-veg and turned vegan. Being vegan actually helped his multiple brain tumours when he was experiencing them. As we were backstage, there were other artists ready to perform later that night, alongside a Sri Lanka rapper, singer and songwriter, Ashanti, the first Sri Lankan freestyle rapper to be signed to Sony and Universal Music. The show was a success, with many people attending, and I had the opportunity to witness it all. Every time I had seen Nazy, it felt like there was a lot of suppression within him, which I could feel. I still remember the last few memories when we both were backstage, and I was giving him advice about his health, as I felt I was some sort of therapist person, helping in need, and the people like him were gravitated towards me. One day, while I was chilling with my friend, I stumbled across a YouTube video with an amazing beat produced by a UK producer. I was instantly drawn to this beat and began writing lyrics to it. An hour later, I had created a song about overcoming hardships and finding victory. I named it Rocky Road. I had recorded it raw style, nor mixed, nor mastered, so I decided to send it to Terry. He messaged me back saying the track was good and I should get it professionally produced, as millions of people have probably used the same beat. This can happen, and it's worth to be aware of. I took his advice and went on a search to find a producer to collaborate with. I had been searching for a producer for a while, but I still hadn't found the right one for the beat I needed. I decided to take a chance and reach out to a producer who I stumbled upon on Instagram, Brennan, from Mississippi. We hit it off immediately, and I felt a strong connection with him. Despite the distance, I sent my vocals over to him, and we settled a 50-50 royalty split for the beat. Brennan used FL Studio 20 for the production, and he shared his screen with me so I could offer my input. This signifies that even being afar, one can achieve goals. Within 10 minutes, he had crafted the foundation of the beat. I loved it. He had even added a sample that made the song really stand out. As we made the finishing touches, I could hardly contain my excitement. I sent the song to Terry over WhatsApp, and he was astounded. The beat with the lyrics is described as intriguing. Terry suggested that the song will stand out even more if we made an interesting visual video to it. He explained his idea, and it was unlike anything I had ever seen before. He wanted to create an interactive music video that would showcase a song in a different and innovative way. The video would be designed to be interactive for the viewer, meaning that the viewers would put their own spin on the song. We discussed the concept for a while, and in the end, I decided to trust Terry's vision. I liked the idea, and I told him to go ahead and start working on it. Terry had a fantastic, fantabulous idea, one that was different from any other artist's video. He wanted to create a video featuring survivors of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, racism, bullying, and other forms of discrimination. He asked me to find 8 people to share their stories and become Rocky Road survivors. At first, I was unsure of where to start, but I put the word out on social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. I was overwhelmed with the response. So many people reached out to tell their stories, stories of resilience and courage. I was moved beyond words by the stories I heard. People who had been through so much adversity, but still managed to come out strong on the other side. It felt like we was creating something special, something that could inspire and motivate others who were going through a similar struggle, or just to emphasize the victories ordinary people can go through. Terry had the idea of making a documentary about overcoming obstacles in life. He had a vision of using footage of people holding cards with positive words on them to represent their victories. Meanwhile, I gathered supplies to make the video, including blank cardboards, markers, and a humble camera. I felt an immense sense of joy and accomplishment with each step I took. Now, let me tell you about the characters/actors I chose for the Rocky Road story. 10 characters, 6 males and 6 females. Anil Mahi was a young chap growing up without a dad. Despite the trauma and the difficulties he faced, Anil was determined to succeed. He worked hard and eventually achieved his goals. Sunny Angel was another amazing person with a difficult story. She had been sexually abused by a stalker and was deeply traumatized by her experience. But she was determined to not let her past define her. She wrote a book called Wings, where she told her story and encouraged others to not give up. Gurbax Dasanj was a strong woman who had survived a womb cancer. She had fought the battle with her illness and never gave up. Her story was inspiration to many. Stuart had been an alcoholic, but he changed his life completely. He became a man of God at church, helping other people going through a similar situation and struggle. Leroy had experienced a terrible tragedy. His newborn baby boy had died due to negligence by one of the midwives in the hospital. He had been on heavy drugs before he made the decision to turn his life around for his 7 daughters. Stephen had a near-death experience which changed his life. He had become the Lord Mayor of Essex and was helping other people in need. Dulcie was an incredible woman who survived a plane crash in which all of her family members were killed. Her story was incredible and emotional and inspiring. Max had isolated himself from the world, but he realized that this was not good for him and decided to turn his life around and was a great inspiration for many. Samantha Bumford was Miss England's finalist that was stalked by a wannabe rapper. She dealt with harassment for years. Eventually, the stalker was jailed and she fought for all the women that were going through a similar situation. Mayameen Miftahi had a traumatic experience which left her scarred when her dad sexually abused her. He was jailed for his horrendous act, and Mayameen became a stand-up speaker for all women and also featured on TED Talks. Sharda Kunti was a horrific cancer survivor. The illness didn't put her down while she was going through it. She appreciated the small things in life, but luckily recovered by treatment. These were the people I chose for the Rocky Road story. Each of them had gone through difficulties and hardships, but they never gave up and eventually achieved their goals. They were inspiring examples of the strength of the human spirit. When I first began working on this project, I was sure it would be a lot of work and almost impossible to pull off. But I was determined. I knew that anything is possible if you put your full focus and concentration into it. As I finished writing the 75 cards for the survivors to hold, Terry gave me the thumbs up. After trial and error, we had finally achieved what we set out to do. Rocky Road was a song that really touched me. It seemed to contain some kind of power, as if the song was tapping into the depths of my consciousness and unlocking hidden secrets, which are not secrets because they are realities of life. Next, we had to plan out the video shoot. Terry, being a nomad, suggested a place where he had stayed before and he thought that would be ideal. It was just outside of London and was a known place called Ruislip Lido. It was a place full of life and nature, and because of this, it was perfect for our project. We then picked a day that was convenient for everybody and arranged Max, Stuart and Anil to travel with us from Leicester. The rest of the survivors had their own transportations, and we reimbursed them for their fuel expenses. Now that the preparation were all taken care of, it was time for us to share the message we had been working so hard to create. This powerful message was meant to reach out and help those who needed it the most. And it was finally ready to be shared with the whole world. Terry and I had been working together for weeks. We finally got to the point of recording the video for the motivational Punjabi and English double rap song. After a week of crushing the bars, I met up with Terry again. "Great work, bro," he said. "I've started editing the video clips, and I'll put them together with the song. Let's get the shots set up for your lyrics." Terry had an eye for a director. He knew how to take shots with unique angles. We shot this video on a Canon 5D Mark III and a OnePlus phone with a gimbal. Everything was portable, which made it easier to maneuver in tight spaces. We worked together for hours, going over and over the footage. Finally, after a long day of shooting, we had a video in a can. Terry looked at me and smiled, with a spark in his eyes. "We've got something special here," he said. "This one's going global. I mean international." I couldn't wait to share the video with everyone. With Terry's help, I knew it was going to be something special. In association, after creating the Rocky Road track, something inside of me changed. I felt a sudden urge to make beats, to be part of the world of music production. For many years, I was chasing producers for beats, trying to acquire ownership of them. But it was a complicated process. My friend Terry had told me something that really resonated with me. Own your masters, and you want to get 100% of all what you do. I remembered V. Khan had given me a small tutorial on FL Studio, and I thought if I could use the software, I could make my own beats. So I contacted one of my close friends, Zircon, who had sadly passed away. He had downloaded a copy of FL Studio 20 for me, and I took the laptop home and started to create. I worked in a free-flow mindset, allowing myself to see what came out of each session. The beats were sounding grime, very simple and basic, but it was a start. As I explored different sounds, downloading free drum kits here and there, I started to get the hang of it. The sounds aligned together with chords, drums, and melodies, and my ears adjusted to each sound. I kept working at it, and eventually my beats started to sound more professional. With each session, I was getting better and better. From good to better. I began to send demos of my work to Terry. I was always so excited to hear what he had to say about my work. He would give me feedback like, "Good work, bro. Just keep creating, exploring, and watch tutorials and study FL Studio in depth." With practice, I was not expecting to be perfect. Nevertheless, I became better. I took his advice and began to talk to producers in forums to get tips and tricks on how to improve. I also invested in a small MIDI keyboard with pads, which came in handy when chopping up samples, voices and sounds. I had a blast making beats everywhere, from the studio to the kitchen to nature, on the coach. This consistency helped me to improve my skills. I realized, in order to make a beat stand out, I had to understand about the original sounds of music. Terry used to go to many concerts featuring harmoniums, flutes, guitars, and keyboards. So I began to explore different instruments and incorporate those sounds into my beats. One day, I noticed a harmonium in my living room that had been sitting untouched for years. I decided to give it a try, and I was absolutely blown away with the beautiful sounds it created. After feeling a connection with the harmonium, I wanted to explore how to play other instruments as well. The first time I heard the African djembe drum, I was at the London Carnival. The sound of the drum was amazing, very earthy, grounded, alive. It had a very powerful and healing frequency to it. After hearing it, I knew I wanted to learn how to play it, and so I decided to buy one. When I went looking for a drum, I was overwhelmed by the different varieties I could choose from. Then I heard an African drum master say, "Go with your inner tuition when it comes to choosing a drum." I thought this was good advice, so I followed it and chose a 23-inch Boogaroo drum with a deep tone and a heavy frame. Once I had saved enough money to buy the drum, I kept it in my studio and decided to play it. At first, I was out of sync, but I kept at it, and eventually I figured out the rhythm. I watched tutorial videos on YouTube to give me a boost, and I practiced for hours and hours. What was interesting, I started to come up with new patterns and rhythms that I never could imagine of. This says, determination, anything is possible. Drumming also brought a sense of healing. It felt like the stress and pressure of my work life was released when I was drumming. As I continued my drumming journey, I discovered other instruments, such as a Native American flute. The 432 Hz flute. The 432 Hz sound of the flute was so calming, and I soon fell in love with it. I went online and ordered a flute from High Spirit Flutes. One mate of mine gave me a salute when I played the flute. When I first held the flute, I began to play. I was overwhelmed with the emotion. I had never felt so connected to something before. I was transformed from a rapper into a musician, and my love of music also gave me love for art and drawing. My friends, especially Terry, noticed the transformation in me and kept encouraging me to pursue my talents. I eventually decided to release a solo album that I recorded with Terry. I titled the albums Whispers of Life, Igda, Unity, Volume 1 and Volume 2. I leave you with these parting words. I wish you the strength and understanding in our own journey. Everyone's journey is unique to themselves. Recognizing this opens new doorways to opportunities and events that you might not have been aware of before. There are multiple reasons I have written this audiobook to show insight into the music industry of what it might be like, loopholes, pitfalls. It might help someone, that is, an inspiring artist, that wants to build a connection with the industry. This audiobook might show them the clarity when it comes to signing contracts, dealing with different types of people, events, situations. For some, this might be useless information, which they might know already, but for some, this might be their guideline, which helps them lead the path to success. The rest of my story is unwritten. I'm excited to see where it goes. What can I say? I have seen many moments in my life, which have been emotional, fun, inspiring, scary, but all of this was worth it. It has made me what I am today. Like they say, grey hair is not just grey hair, it's a sign of wisdom and involvement, which you choose to learn from life every step of the way. Life teaches what you need to know. I'm humbled by the grace of the divine that I am about to create this audiobook and share it with others. Whatever you do, have the faith and patience, it will work out. Remaining doubtless is the method. It keeps you present in what you need to focus in, right here and right now, instead of overthinking and worrying. Don't get me wrong, there are some amazing tools we have within us that help us to keep our drive going. One of them is stress. I feel there are two types of stresses. One is where you let this overwhelming sensation take over you, and all you think about is failure, nothing else. You don't want to move forward in whatever you do. And there is another stress where you feel sensations. Yes, they feel uncomfortable, but in the mind you know there is something that needs to be done. You have a deeper realization that the world doesn't stop and keep flowing like the river. With the stress signals, it gives you the drive to rectify that obstacle and evolve through it. The mountains and the valleys have been worth it. They have brought me to a place where I can share my extraordinary journey. Like I mentioned in the audiobook, Rocky Road, it's a rocky road for all of us. I feel the reason we've taken birth on planet Earth is to deeply understand pain and suffering, of how to reduce it. It shall set us free from what we might be scared of. It could be a past trauma, events, relationships, behaviors, setbacks. Using these memories are tools to evolve and make us shine. We all are starseeds that deserve happiness, joy, ecstasy, bliss. It's all there waiting for us. It's up to us what we choose. The choice is ours. I want to give acknowledgements to all those that have supported me on my journey. Jedi, Benjamin, V. Khan, Zircon, rest in peace, Raw King, Joshi P, Tyler White, Agyapal Singh Bath, Romy Benz, Sabi Uncle, Jesse Singh, Gurpal, Sonu Singh, JSD, Jagdar Singh, Arun Shukla, MC Mebs, DJ UK India, Andre, MC Azad, MC Todford, Mawali, Swadesi, Pritesh, Terry Mardi, Ustad B.S. Narang Saab, rest in peace, Ma, Bapu, Bibi, A Musical Journey by Breathe. The end.